Speak only after you understand the room. Power often belongs to the person who notices what everyone else misses. Before a single word leaves your mouth, the room is already speaking through posture, tone, eye contact, silence, laughter, and tension. Most people ignore these signals because they are too busy trying to be noticed. They rush into conversations, reveal their opinions too early, and accidentally show where they can be pushed, flattered, or dismissed. The more controlled person waits, not out of fear, but out of calculation. They study who dominates the space, who seeks approval, who feels threatened, who is pretending to be relaxed, and who carries quiet authority. This kind of patience creates an advantage because your first words are no longer random. They are timed. They land with purpose. People respect this because it feels rare. A person who does not hurry to prove themselves appears grounded, self-contained, and difficult to intimidate. Their silence creates curiosity. Their calmness makes others wonder what they have already seen. And when they finally speak, people listen more closely because their words have not been wasted on nervous noise. This also protects you from hidden social traps. Some rooms look friendly but are full of quiet competition. Some conversations are not honest exchanges. They are tests of awareness. If you speak too soon, you may choose the wrong tone, expose too much, or give someone a weakness to study. But when you understand the room first, you move with precision. You do not just join the energy. You learn how to control your place inside it. Never rush to prove you are smart. Intelligence loses power when it starts begging to be noticed. The person who hurries to show how much they know often reveals something deeper than knowledge. They reveal insecurity. They interrupt, correct too quickly, over-explain simple ideas, and turn every conversation into a stage where they must perform. At first, it may look impressive, but after a while, people begin to feel the hunger behind it. Real confidence does not chase validation. It allows understanding to appear naturally. When you are truly secure in your mind, you do not need to turn every moment into proof. You can listen without preparing a dramatic answer. You can let others speak without feeling smaller. You can allow silence to exist without rushing to fill it with facts, opinions, or clever remarks. This restraint is quietly intimidating because most people cannot do it. They need applause after every thought. They need recognition after every sentence. But when you stay calm, speak only when necessary, and allow your intelligence to reveal itself through timing, clarity, and judgment, people sense depth without you announcing it. The darker advantage is that you become harder to read. When you do not rush to display everything you know, others underestimate you, expose themselves, and speak more freely around you. They may reveal their assumptions, weaknesses, intentions, or ignorance without realizing you are watching carefully. Respect grows when people realize you are not trying to win every small exchange. You are not desperate to look brilliant. You are patient enough to let your value unfold. That kind of intelligence feels controlled, mature, and dangerous in the quietest way. Let silence do some of the work for you. Silence becomes powerful when people expect you to fill every empty space with nervous words. Most people fear quiet moments because silence makes them feel exposed. They rush to explain, defend, impress, or soften the tension, not realizing that every extra word can weaken their position. The person who can stay quiet without looking uncomfortable immediately feels different because they are not being controlled by the pressure of the moment. This kind of restraint creates psychological weight. When you pause before answering, people begin to listen more carefully. When you do not react instantly to provocation, the other person is left sitting with their own behavior. When you stop trying to rescue every awkward moment, others start revealing themselves. They talk more than they planned. They expose their motives, their insecurity, their need for control, or their hidden discomfort. That is why silence can feel unsettling. It forces people to meet themselves. A calm pause can make arrogance look childish, lies feel heavier, and disrespect lose its rhythm. You are not attacking anyone, yet your quietness makes them aware of what they just said. This is why confident people often use fewer words. They understand that silence can create authority, curiosity, and pressure without raising the voice. Used wisely, silence protects your dignity. It keeps you from over-explaining, over-apologizing, or giving emotional access too quickly. It teaches people that your attention is not automatic. You do not need to chase the conversation to prove you matter. Sometimes the strongest response is a steady look, a controlled breath, and the discipline to let the room feel your absence before your words arrive. Do not explain your boundaries too much. Boundaries lose their force when they are buried under long explanations. The moment you start defending every limit, some people stop hearing your standard and start looking for weak places in your reasoning. They listen for guilt, hesitation, fear, or emotional softness they can pressure. This is why over-explaining often turns a clear boundary into an open negotiation. A confident person understands that not every limit needs a speech. Some decisions are allowed to stand because they protect your peace, your time, your energy, and your self-respect. When you say too much, you may sound like you are asking for approval. You may begin to justify why you deserve basic respect, why you need space, why something hurt you, or why you are no longer available for behavior that drains you. The darker truth is that manipulative people often do not need more information. They need more access. They ask why repeatedly, not because they want understanding, but because they want a doorway back into control. If you keep explaining, they keep arguing. If you keep defending, they keep testing. But when your boundary is calm, brief, and steady, it becomes much harder to twist. This creates instant respect because people sense that your standards are not fragile. You are not angry, dramatic, or desperate to be understood. You are simply decided. That kind of certainty can feel intimidating because it removes the emotional handles others use to pull you around. A short boundary says, "This is where I stand." A long explanation often says, "Please agree with where I stand." The difference is quiet, but powerful. Stay calm. When others become dramatic, chaos becomes easier to control when you refuse to join it. Some people raise their voice, exaggerate their pain, twist the mood, or create pressure because they are used to pulling others into their emotional storm. They want a reaction. They want you to defend yourself too quickly, lose your balance, or say something they can use against you later. The moment you match their intensity, you give them the power to set the tone. Calmness changes the entire dynamic. It makes the dramatic person look louder, less controlled, and more exposed. While they are performing urgency, you are showing discipline. While they are trying to spread tension, you are choosing stillness. This does not mean you are weak, passive, or unaffected. It means you have enough inner authority not to let someone else's emotions become your instructions. People respect this because emotional control is rare. Anyone can react. Anyone can shout, panic, defend, or throw words around when the room becomes tense. But the person who can breathe, pause, and answer with steady clarity carries a different kind of power. Their calmness makes others feel that they cannot be easily shaken. There is also a hidden protection in this. Drama often creates confusion, and confusion makes people easier to control. When you stay calm, you see the real issue behind the noise. You notice whether someone is hurt, manipulative, insecure, or simply seeking attention. Instead of becoming part of the storm, you become the person who can read it, survive it, and decide what deserves your response without surrendering your dignity to someone else's lack of control again. Never laugh at disrespect just to keep peace. A forced laugh can become a quiet betrayal of yourself. When someone insults you, mocks your standards, or hides cruelty inside a joke, laughing along may feel safer in the moment. It avoids tension. It keeps the room comfortable. It makes you look easygoing. But beneath that small laugh, something important is happening. You are teaching people that your dignity can be softened, tested, and dismissed without consequence. Disrespect often begins as a small experiment. Someone throws a sharp comment, watches your reaction, and studies whether you will protect yourself. If you laugh just to avoid awkwardness, they may read it as permission. The next comment becomes bolder. The tone becomes heavier. The joke becomes a pattern. What started as nothing serious slowly becomes a place where your self-respect is expected to stay quiet. True confidence does not require aggression, but it does require honesty. You can stay calm without pretending something was funny. You can give a steady look, pause, and say less. Sometimes the most powerful response is not a comeback, but the refusal to reward disrespect with warmth. That shift alone changes the energy because people realize you are not available for casual humiliation. This creates respect because it shows that your peace has boundaries. You are not desperate to be liked at the cost of yourself. You do not make others comfortable by swallowing what insults you. A person who can stay composed while refusing to laugh at disrespect sends a clear message. Access to their good nature is earned, not guaranteed, and their presence will never be bought with silent self-abandonment again. Walk away before your self-respect starts negotiating. There is a dangerous moment when your dignity begins to bargain with what already hurt you. At first, you know something is wrong. You feel the disrespect, the inconsistency, the coldness, or the emotional games. But instead of leaving, the mind starts creating excuses. Maybe they did not mean it. Maybe you are being too sensitive. Maybe one more conversation will fix what their actions keep repeating. That is where self-respect starts weakening. Not because you lack value, but because you are standing too long in a place that keeps asking you to lower your standard for comfort, attachment, or hope. The longer you stay, the easier it becomes to explain away behavior you once promised yourself you would never tolerate. Walking away early is not pride. It is protection. It means you recognize the point where discussion becomes begging, patience becomes self-abandonment, and loyalty becomes permission for someone to mishandle you. People respect the person who can leave before they are emotionally dragged into pleading for basic decency. This kind of confidence can feel cold, but it is actually clear. You are not trying to punish anyone. You are refusing to negotiate with patterns that keep shrinking you. When someone sees that you can remove your presence without a dramatic speech, they understand that your self-worth is not available for debate. The darker power is that walking away restores control immediately. You stop explaining, chasing, proving, and hoping. You return the responsibility to the person who created the damage, while keeping your dignity untouched and your inner authority protected from further emotional erosion. That silent exit often says what 1,000 painful explanations never could. Answer pressure with patience, not panic. Pressure reveals the difference between control and fear. Anyone can appear confident when the room is calm, the questions are easy, and no one is demanding a response. But when someone pushes, rushes, threatens, challenges, or tries to force an immediate answer, the nervous person reacts quickly just to escape discomfort. They speak before thinking, agree too soon, defend too emotionally, or make promises they later regret under emotional pressure. Patience changes that power dynamic. When you slow down under pressure, you send a silent message that urgency does not own you. You are not controlled by someone else's tone, timeline, anger, or expectation. This can feel unsettling to people who are used to using intensity as a weapon. They expect panic because panic makes people easier to lead. They expect you to hurry because hurried people expose fear. A patient response gives you time to see what is really happening. Is the person testing your confidence? Are they trying to corner you? Are they creating false urgency so you will accept less, reveal more, or surrender your boundary? The pause protects you from becoming a puppet of the moment. People respect patience because it feels like inner authority. A calm delay before speaking can make your answer sound heavier, wiser, and harder to dismiss. You are not refusing to respond. You are refusing to be rushed into weakness. The darker strength is that patience makes pressure lose its teeth. While others expect you to shake, you remain steady. While they push harder, you become clearer. That kind of composure makes people realize they cannot control you simply by increasing tension. Keep some parts of your life private. Mystery creates a kind of authority that constant exposure destroys. When everyone knows your plans, fears, habits, relationships, income, weaknesses, and emotional triggers, they no longer have to guess where to touch you. They already know. Too much openness can feel honest, but in the wrong hands, it becomes a map people can use to study, judge, copy, compete with, or control you. Privacy is not secrecy born from shame. It is self-protection born from wisdom. The more access people have to your inner world, the more carefully you must choose who deserves it. Not every listener is safe. Some people collect personal details so they can use them later. Some pretend to care, but are only looking for something to gossip about. Others will quietly measure themselves against your progress and begin resenting you before you even succeed. A private person carries a different energy. They do not announce every move, explain every absence, or turn their life into public evidence. This makes them harder to predict and harder to manipulate. People may become curious, but they also become careful because they sense there are rooms inside you they have not been invited into. Respect often grows when access is limited. What is always available is easily taken for granted. What is protected feels valuable. When you stop sharing every thought, every struggle, and every plan, your presence gains weight. You teach people that knowing you is not an automatic privilege. It is something earned through trust, consistency, and discretion. That quiet control makes your life feel less exposed, your choices feel stronger, and your confidence feel untouchable. Stop asking for permission to be confident. Confidence becomes weak when it waits for approval. Many people do not realize they are doing this. They soften their voice before speaking, apologize before sharing an opinion, hide their standards until others agree, or act smaller around people who seem louder. They are not lacking ability. They are trapped in the habit of checking the room before allowing themselves to stand fully in their own presence. The painful truth is that people rarely respect confidence that asks to be accepted first. When you keep looking for signs that others are comfortable with your strength, you give them quiet authority over your identity. Their mood decides how bold you become. Their reaction decides how much space you take. Their approval becomes the door you keep knocking on before entering your own power. Real confidence begins when you stop waiting to be chosen, validated, or emotionally cleared by others. You do not need everyone to understand your growth before you carry yourself differently. You do not need applause before you speak with certainty. You do not need permission to stop shrinking. This kind of self-possession can unsettle people because it removes their control. Those who benefited from your hesitation may call you arrogant when you finally stand straight. Those who liked your insecurity may become uncomfortable when you no longer ask if your strength is acceptable. But respect often starts at the exact moment you stop auditioning for it. When your confidence comes from inner decision instead of public approval, your energy changes. You become harder to dismiss, harder to intimidate, and harder to reshape into someone easier to manage. Do not shrink your voice. When you are right. Truth loses force when it is delivered like an apology. Many people know exactly what they mean, but the moment they sense resistance, their voice becomes smaller. They lower their tone, add nervous laughter, soften every sentence, and surround the truth with phrases that make it easier for others to dismiss. They are not wrong. They are afraid of being too clear. This is where respect begins to disappear. When you speak as if your own words need permission to exist, people may start treating your certainty as negotiable. They interrupt more easily. They question what they would have accepted from someone with a steadier voice. They sense hesitation and mistake it for weakness, even when your point is accurate. A firm voice does not mean shouting. It means allowing your words to stand upright. It means speaking with enough calm weight that people understand you are not begging to be believed. When you are right, your delivery should not betray you. Your tone should match the strength of your understanding, not the comfort level of the people listening. This kind of confidence can make others uncomfortable because it removes the usual opening for control. If they cannot shame you into silence, rush you into confusion, or make you dilute your point, they must deal with what you actually said. There is quiet power in holding your voice steady. You are not attacking. You are not performing. You are simply refusing to make truth sound weak just because someone else prefers you uncertain. That steadiness makes your presence harder to bend and your words harder to erase. Hold eye contact without trying to dominate. Eye contact becomes powerful when it feels steady, not hungry. Many people misunderstand presence and turn their gaze into a weapon. They stare too hard, refuse to blink naturally, or use their eyes to intimidate because they think dominance creates respect. But forced intensity often reveals insecurity. It makes people feel challenged, watched, or uncomfortable instead of respected. The more confident move is controlled softness. You look at someone long enough to show attention, but not so long that your gaze becomes a threat. You are present without invading. You are focused without begging for control. This balance creates a strange kind of authority because it tells people you are not afraid of connection, but you also do not need to overpower them to feel strong. People notice this immediately. A steady gaze makes your words feel more honest, your silence feel more intentional, and your presence feel harder to ignore. It shows that you are not hiding behind distraction, nervous laughter, or wandering eyes. You can meet another person directly without collapsing under their attention. The emotional effect is subtle but deep. When someone feels seen without feeling attacked, their defenses lower. They begin to trust your steadiness. They sense that you are self-contained, aware, and difficult to shake. This is why calm eye contact often earns more respect than aggressive staring ever could. The real power is restraint. You are not trying to win a silent battle. You are showing that your confidence does not need force. Your gaze simply says, you are here, you are grounded, emotionally present, and you are not easily moved. Do not chase people who act unsure about you. Uncertainty becomes dangerous when you start treating it like a challenge to win. Some people give you half attention, mixed signals, delayed replies, warm moments followed by cold distance, and just enough interest to keep you waiting. The mistake is believing their confusion is a mystery you must solve. In reality, chasing someone who cannot decide about you often turns your confidence into a performance. The more you pursue unclear people, the more power you hand them. Their silence starts controlling your mood. Their small affection starts feeling like a reward. Their inconsistency becomes something you analyze, excuse, and personalize. Slowly, you stop asking whether they are worthy of your energy and begin asking what you can do to make them choose you. That is where respect fades. People rarely value what keeps running after them while they remain undecided. When your presence is too available to someone who treats you like an option, they may begin to see your patience as weakness, not loyalty. They learn that they can stay confused while you stay invested. Dark confidence means withdrawing from uncertainty without making a scene. You do not beg for clarity from someone enjoying your confusion. You do not audition for attention that should already feel natural. You simply step back and let their behavior reveal their level of respect. This restraint is powerful because it returns your value to your own hands. You stop negotiating with mixed energy. You stop chasing emotional crumbs. And when people realize your attention disappears the moment they become careless with it, they begin to understand that access to you is not guaranteed. Let people feel your absence. When they undervalue your presence, sometimes the strongest message is not another explanation, another reminder, or another attempt to prove your worth. It is distance. Many people only understand the value of your energy after they lose easy access to it. While you are always available, always forgiving, always showing up, they may begin to treat your presence like something ordinary. They enjoy your loyalty without honoring it. They receive your effort without respecting the heart behind it. This is where quiet withdrawal becomes powerful, not as revenge, not as punishment, but as self-respect. When someone repeatedly overlooks what you bring, your absence teaches what your words could not. It removes the comfort they were taking for granted. Suddenly, the calls are not answered as quickly. The warmth is not as easy to reach. The support they assumed would always be there no longer waits at their convenience. People often disrespect what never seems to leave. Constant availability can make even valuable presence feel cheap in the wrong hands. But when you step back with calm control, the emotional balance changes. They begin to notice the space you filled, the peace you brought, the effort you gave, and the silence that now sits where your care used to be. This kind of confidence is unsettling because it does not beg to be appreciated. It simply stops offering premium access to people with careless hands. You do not need to announce that you are pulling away. Your changed energy speaks clearly enough. Respect grows when people realize your presence is a privilege, not a permanent guarantee. Sometimes absence is the only language that teaches others the cost of taking you lightly. Never over-apologize for having standards. Standards begin to look weak when you keep apologizing for them. Many people say sorry before they ask for respect, sorry before they protect their time, sorry before they refuse behavior that drains them. They do it because they do not want to seem difficult, cold, proud, or unkind. But every unnecessary apology can make a clear standard sound like a personal offense. This is where people start testing you. If you apologize too much for needing honesty, consistency, space, loyalty, or basic decency, the wrong person may hear guilt instead of clarity. They may begin to act as if your standards are unreasonable simply because you presented them with fear. What should have sounded like self-respect begins to sound like a request for permission. Real confidence does not apologize for having limits. It can be respectful without being submissive. It can be kind without shrinking. It can say no without turning the word into a long emotional defense. When your standards are steady, people understand that you are not trying to punish them. You are simply showing them what kind of access your life requires. This kind of firmness can unsettle people who benefited from your softness. They may call you harsh when you stop explaining. They may act wounded when you stop accepting less. But that discomfort does not mean your standard is wrong. It often means your growth has removed their advantage. Respect rises when your standards no longer arrive covered in apology. You teach people that your peace is not a favor you must justify, and your self-worth is not something you are sorry for protecting. Do not compete for attention in loud rooms. Noise tempts insecure people to perform. When the room is full of big voices, forced laughter, dramatic stories, and people trying to prove they matter, It can feel like you must become louder just to be seen. But the moment you start fighting for attention, you enter the same desperate game everyone else is playing. Your energy becomes reactive. Your presence becomes dependent on being noticed. The person with darker confidence understands that not every room deserves a performance. They do not interrupt to stay relevant. They do not exaggerate stories to appear interesting. They do not raise their voice just because others are afraid of being forgotten. Instead, they stay composed, selective, and observant. This makes them stand out in a way noise never can. People are often drawn to the one person who is not begging for the spotlight. Calmness in a loud room creates contrast. It suggests control, mystery, and emotional independence. While others are spending energy trying to be impressive, you appear self-contained. You make people wonder why you are not rushing to prove anything. This does not mean becoming invisible. It means speaking with timing instead of hunger. When you finally contribute, your words feel sharper because they are not buried under constant noise. You become the person people lean in to hear, not the one they tune out from exhaustion. Respect grows when your confidence is not controlled by the volume of the room. You show that attention is not something you chase. It is something your presence can attract without surrendering your dignity to competition. Make your yes valuable by using no wisely. Agreement loses meaning when it is given too easily. Some people say yes because they fear disappointing others, fear being disliked, or fear losing access to people who only value them when they are useful. At first, this may look kind, generous, and dependable. But over time, constant agreement teaches people that your time, energy, attention, and effort can be reached without much respect. A powerful yes must have weight. It should feel chosen, not squeezed out of you by guilt, pressure, fear, or habit. This is why no is not just rejection. It is the gatekeeper that protects the value of everything you accept. When you use no wisely, people begin to understand that your agreement is not automatic. It has standards behind it. This changes how others treat you. The person who can refuse calmly is harder to exploit. They cannot be trapped by emotional pressure, rushed by urgency, or softened by manipulation disguised as need. Their kindness becomes cleaner because it is no longer mixed with resentment. Their help feels more valuable because it comes from decision, not weakness. There is quiet authority in a selective yes. It tells people you respect yourself enough to choose where your energy goes. It also makes others listen more carefully when you agree, because they know you could have refused. Respect grows when people realize access to you has conditions. You are not available for every demand, every crisis, every invitation, or every emotional burden. Your yes becomes powerful because your no proves it cannot be cheaply bought. That restraint makes your presence feel steadier, stronger, and more respected instantly. Never reward disrespect with emotional access. Access becomes dangerous when it is handed to people who have already shown they cannot handle it. Some people insult you, dismiss your feelings, cross your limits, then expect the same warmth, explanation, attention, and openness as before. If you keep giving them emotional closeness after they disrespect you, they learn that your inner world has no real protection. This is how small disrespect becomes a pattern. A person tests your patience, watches your reaction, and studies whether your care remains available. If you still comfort them, explain yourself deeply, chase their approval, or share vulnerable parts of your life, they may begin to believe that hurting you has no cost. Your softness becomes something they can access without responsibility. Dark confidence means understanding that emotional access is a privilege. Not everyone deserves your full honesty, your long explanations, your private fears, your wounds, or your tenderness. When someone disrespects you, the first consequence should often be distance, not drama. You do not have to become cruel. You simply become less available. This shift can feel powerful because it removes the reward from bad behavior. The person no longer gets your emotional labor after damaging your peace. They no longer receive your warmth while treating your dignity carelessly. They must feel the difference between being close to you and losing that closeness. Respect grows when people realize your heart is not an open room for anyone to enter. If they mishandle your presence, they lose access to the deeper parts of you. That quiet withdrawal teaches what words often cannot. Your emotions are valuable, guarded, and never owed to someone who treats them lightly. Stay composed when someone tries to provoke you. Provocation is a trap dressed as a conversation. Some people do not want understanding. They want a reaction they can point to later. They use sharp comments, mocking tones, false accusations, sudden disrespect, or public pressure to pull you out of character. The goal is not always to win the argument. Sometimes the goal is to make you look unstable enough for them to feel powerful. Composure breaks that trap. When you do not flinch, rush, shout, or defend yourself too quickly, the person trying to provoke you loses control of the script. Their words no longer produce the emotional payment they were expecting. Instead of dragging you into their chaos, they are left standing beside their own behavior. This kind of calmness unsettles people because it reveals their intention without you needing to expose it loudly. A steady face, a slower breath, and a measured response can make aggression look desperate. You are not pretending nothing happened. You are choosing not to hand your dignity to someone who is fishing for weakness. People respect this because self-control feels rare in tense moments. Anyone can react when insulted. Anyone can throw back pain when touched in the wrong place. But the person who stays grounded shows a level of inner command that cannot be easily disturbed. The darker power is that provocation feeds on your loss of control. If you stay composed, the attack has nowhere to grow. You keep your mind clear, your image intact, and your authority untouched while the other person exposes what they could not control inside themselves in front of everyone watching and quietly loses the advantage they wanted. Do not reveal every plan before it succeeds. Ambition becomes vulnerable when it is exposed too early. Many people destroy their own momentum by announcing every goal before the work has enough strength to survive judgment. They share the idea, the dream, the strategy, the business, the move, the relationship, or the transformation while it is still fragile, then wonder why the energy begins to weaken. Early exposure invites noise. Some people will discourage you because they are afraid of what your growth might reveal about their own delay. Some will pretend to support you while quietly hoping you fail. Others will ask questions that plant doubt, not because your plan is weak, but because your confidence makes them uncomfortable. When too many eyes touch an unfinished vision, it can become harder to protect the original fire. Quiet execution carries darker confidence because it removes the audience from the building stage. You stop feeding people updates and start feeding the result. You give less access to your process, which means fewer people can interrupt, copy, criticize, or emotionally drain what you are creating. This does not mean hiding out of fear. It means understanding timing. A seed does not need applause before it breaks through the ground. Your plan needs discipline, privacy, repetition, and protection before it needs public recognition. People respect results that arrive without constant announcement. When they realize you were moving silently, improving quietly, and building while they assumed nothing was happening, your presence gains weight. Success becomes more powerful when it speaks for itself before anyone had the chance to weaken it with opinions. That silence makes your discipline feel almost impossible to predict. Stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. Not every misunderstanding is an accident. Some people already decided who you are before you opened your mouth. They twist your words, ignore your intentions, and reject every explanation because understanding was never their goal. They are not searching for clarity. They are protecting a version of you that makes them feel justified, superior, or comfortable. The mistake is believing that one more conversation will finally change their mind. You explain again, choose softer words, provide more details, and patiently defend your motives, hoping honesty will break through. But with every new explanation, you give them more material to question, distort, or dismiss. Instead of ending the confusion, you become trapped inside an endless cycle of proving yourself. Dark confidence recognizes when communication has become a performance with no audience willing to listen. It understands that some people are emotionally invested in misunderstanding you because the truth would require them to admit they were wrong. That is why no amount of evidence satisfies them. They are arguing with your existence, not your explanation. Walking away from that cycle is not surrender. It is wisdom. You stop spending valuable energy trying to convince people who benefit from refusing to understand you. Your peace becomes more important than winning an argument that was never honest to begin with. People respect those who know when to stop defending themselves. It shows emotional maturity, self-control, and a deep understanding of human nature. You no longer measure your worth by someone else's willingness to see it. Instead, you allow your actions, your consistency, and your character to speak where endless explanations never could. Sometimes silence protects your dignity far better than the perfect argument ever will. Make decisions without needing everyone to agree. Confidence becomes fragile when every decision depends on someone else's approval. Many people delay important choices because they are waiting for complete agreement from family, friends, co-workers, or strangers. They keep asking for one more opinion, one more reassurance, one more sign that everyone will support them. The problem is that the more voices you invite into your decision, the easier it becomes to lose sight of your own judgment. Not everyone will understand your direction because they are viewing your life through the limits of their own experiences. Some people fear change, others fear risk, and some simply feel uncomfortable when your courage reminds them of the chances they never took. If you make agreement the price of action, your future will always be held hostage by someone else's comfort. Dark confidence understands the difference between seeking wisdom and seeking permission. Listening to trusted advice is valuable, but allowing every opinion to carry equal weight slowly erodes your ability to trust yourself. Strong decisions require responsibility, and responsibility begins the moment you accept that not everyone will applaud your path. People naturally respect someone who moves with quiet certainty. They may question your choices at first, but consistency eventually speaks louder than endless debate. When your actions match your values, your confidence becomes difficult to challenge because it is rooted in conviction rather than popularity. There is also freedom in accepting disagreement. You stop exhausting yourself trying to satisfy impossible expectations. You realize that every meaningful choice will disappoint someone, and that is not evidence you chose poorly. It is evidence that you finally stopped allowing other people's comfort to become the ruler of your own life. Do not lower your standards to be liked. Acceptance feels tempting when it asks for only one small compromise at a time. It rarely begins with something obvious. Instead, it quietly invites you to ignore your instincts, laugh at what makes you uncomfortable, tolerate behavior that drains you, or stay silent about values that matter. At first, these choices seem harmless because they help you fit in. Over time, however, they slowly replace authenticity with performance. The desire to be liked is deeply human, but it becomes dangerous when it costs you your identity. People who constantly adjust their standards to match the expectations around them often lose sight of who they really are. They become different versions of themselves for different people, hoping that enough approval will finally create security. Instead, they end up feeling accepted for a character they invented rather than the person they truly are. Dark confidence refuses to make that trade. It understands that genuine respect cannot grow from pretending. If someone only values you after you abandon your principles, lower your boundaries, or hide your character, then their acceptance was never built on truth, it was built on convenience. Ironically, stronger standards often attract deeper respect. People may not always agree with you, but they recognize consistency. They know where you stand because your values do not change depending on who is watching. That steadiness creates trust, even among those who see the world differently. The quiet power lies in choosing self-respect over temporary approval. You stop measuring your worth by how many people like you and start measuring it by how honestly you live. The right people are not drawn to someone who pleases everyone. They are drawn to someone who remains genuine, even when pretending would be easier. Be kind, but never easily controlled. Kindness becomes dangerous when it exists without discernment. Many people believe being a good person means always saying yes, always forgiving quickly, always being available, and always putting other people's comfort ahead of their own. While compassion is a strength, kindness without boundaries often attracts those who see generosity as an opportunity rather than a gift. The wrong people rarely admire unlimited kindness. They learn to depend on it, test it, and eventually take advantage of it. This is why true confidence separates kindness from obedience. A genuinely kind person does not help because they are afraid of rejection or conflict. They help because they have chosen to. The difference is enormous. When your kindness comes from choice instead of pressure, it cannot be manipulated through guilt, emotional blackmail, or fear of disappointing others. People who seek control often begin with small requests. They expect immediate answers, constant availability, or silent agreement. Each time you sacrifice your own needs just to avoid making them uncomfortable, they quietly learn that your compassion can be directed by their demands. Before long, your kindness becomes something they expect rather than appreciate. Dark confidence changes that pattern. You remain respectful, generous, and caring, but you also recognize when someone is confusing your good nature with weakness. You become comfortable saying no without anger, creating distance without cruelty, and protecting your peace without feeling guilty for doing so. This balance earns lasting respect because it shows emotional strength. Others understand that your kindness is sincere, but it is never automatic. It is offered freely, not extracted through pressure. That makes your generosity feel valuable, your boundaries feel unshakable, and your presence impossible to manipulate without your permission. Let your actions carry more weight than your words. Words are easy to produce, which is why they lose value when they appear without evidence. Anyone can promise loyalty, claim confidence, speak about discipline, or describe the life they intend to build. The difficult part is living those words consistently when no one is watching. That is where true influence begins. People may listen to what you say, but they decide whether to respect you by watching what you repeatedly do. Many people try to create an impressive image through constant talking. They announce every goal, defend every intention, and explain every future success before taking meaningful action. Over time, however, their words begin to feel lighter because they arrive faster than results. The more someone talks without matching behavior, the less seriously others take them, even if they never say it aloud. Dark confidence moves differently. It understands that silence followed by visible action creates far more impact than endless explanation. Instead of convincing people with promises, it allows consistency to become the proof. When your habits repeatedly match your values, your reputation begins speaking before you do. People stop questioning your character because your actions answer those questions naturally. This approach also protects your energy. You spend less time defending your intentions and more time strengthening your reality. Rather than chasing recognition through conversation, you quietly build something that eventually becomes impossible to ignore. Respect grows when people realize your words are reliable because they are supported by action. They understand that when you make a promise, it carries weight. When you express an opinion, it comes from experience. When you commit to something, you follow through. That quiet consistency creates a presence that feels trustworthy, disciplined, and far more powerful than confidence that exists only in conversation. Never look desperate for inclusion. The need to belong is one of the strongest forces in human nature, which is exactly why it can become one of the easiest emotions to exploit. Many people change their personality, ignore their instincts, laugh at things they dislike, or accept poor treatment simply because they fear being left out. They believe that fitting in will make them feel valuable, but the harder they chase acceptance, the more they unintentionally communicate that they do not believe they are enough on their own. Desperation is rarely hidden. It appears in the constant need to be invited, included, noticed, or approved of. It shows up when someone forces conversations, inserts themselves into every group, or becomes whatever others expect just to avoid feeling excluded. Instead of creating connection, this often reduces respect because people naturally sense when someone is seeking belonging at any cost. Dark confidence follows a different path. It understands that genuine connection cannot be forced. Rather than chasing every opportunity to be accepted, it allows relationships to develop naturally. It remains friendly, respectful, and open, but never sacrifices dignity simply to gain access to a room, a group, or a conversation. This attitude creates quiet psychological power. When people realize you are comfortable whether you are included or not, they begin to view your presence differently. Your attention feels more valuable because it is freely given, not desperately offered. You no longer appear dependent on the opinions of others to feel secure. Respect often grows around people who are emotionally complete on their own. They do not reject others, but they also do not abandon themselves to avoid loneliness. That calm independence makes your presence feel chosen rather than needed, and people naturally value what does not constantly beg to be accepted. Learn to pause before responding. The smallest pause can completely change the direction of a conversation. Most people react the instant they feel challenged, criticized, praised, or pressured. Their emotions answer before their mind has time to think. They interrupt, defend themselves, speak out of anger, or agree too quickly simply because the silence between hearing and responding feels uncomfortable. In those few uncontrolled seconds, they often reveal more than they intended. A deliberate pause changes everything. It creates a space where emotion loses control and judgment begins to take over. Instead of reacting to the surface of a situation, you gain the chance to understand what is actually happening. You notice the person's tone, their intention, the emotional atmosphere, and whether a response is even necessary. That brief moment of patience protects you from becoming a prisoner of impulse. Dark confidence relies on this habit because people who cannot control their first reaction are often the easiest to manipulate. A skilled manipulator knows that fear, anger, guilt, and excitement can all be used to rush someone into making poor decisions. When you pause, you quietly refuse to let another person's emotions dictate your behavior. There is also something deeply unsettling about someone who never seems hurried by pressure. A calm pause makes your words feel intentional rather than emotional. It shows that you are thinking instead of simply reacting. People begin listening more carefully because they recognize that your responses are chosen, not accidental. Respect naturally follows this kind of composure. Your words carry greater weight because they are filtered through discipline instead of impulse. Others learn that they cannot easily provoke, rush, or emotionally steer you, and that quiet self-control becomes one of your strongest forms of influence. Do not let compliments make you lose discipline. Praise can become just as dangerous as criticism when it begins to control your behavior. Most people know how to protect themselves from harsh words, but far fewer recognize how easily compliments can weaken their focus. The moment admiration becomes your source of motivation, you quietly hand other people the power to influence your identity. You stop working for your standards and start working for applause. Compliments feel good because they satisfy a natural desire to be appreciated. There is nothing wrong with receiving them. The danger begins when praise becomes more important than progress. A person who depends on constant validation may relax after small success, lower their effort, or begin protecting an image instead of continuing to grow. They become afraid of losing admiration, so they choose comfort over improvement. Dark confidence accepts compliments without becoming addicted to them. It appreciates recognition, but never allows it to replace discipline. Whether people praise your appearance, intelligence, success, or character, your daily habits remain the same. You understand that today's admiration does not guarantee tomorrow's respect, and that lasting confidence is built through consistency, not public approval. This mindset creates psychological strength because it makes you difficult to manipulate. Some people use compliments as a tool to lower your guard, gain influence, or encourage complacency. They know that a person who constantly seeks praise becomes easier to guide. But when your discipline remains stronger than your ego, those tactics lose their effect. People naturally respect someone who stays grounded after success. They notice that recognition has not changed your character or weakened your commitment. Your confidence comes from what you continue building, not from what others happen to say about you. That quiet stability makes your achievements feel authentic, sustainable, and impossible to fake. Do not let criticism make you lose identity. Criticism only becomes destructive when you allow it to redefine who you are. Every person who chooses to stand for something meaningful will eventually face judgment, doubt, rejection, or misunderstanding. The problem is not that criticism exists. The problem begins when you absorb every opinion as if it were a fact about your worth. Slowly, you start questioning your voice, your values, your abilities, and even the parts of yourself that once felt completely certain. Many people abandon their identity because they fear disapproval more than they value authenticity. One harsh comment makes them change their direction. One person's rejection makes them hide their personality. One failure convinces them they were never capable to begin with. Instead of learning from criticism, they surrender to it, allowing other people's perceptions to become stronger than their own self-knowledge. Dark confidence approaches criticism differently. It separates useful feedback from emotional projection. It listens carefully without automatically believing everything it hears. Some criticism contains wisdom that can strengthen your character. Other criticism simply reflects another person's insecurity, jealousy, fear, or limited perspective. The confident person learns from the first and calmly releases the second. This emotional discipline makes you remarkably difficult to control. People quickly realize they cannot reshape your identity with approval one day and rejection the next. Your values remain steady because they were built through reflection, experience, and conviction rather than public opinion. Respect naturally follows people who remain consistent under pressure. Others notice that you do not become arrogant when praised or disappear when criticized. You continue moving with the same purpose because your confidence is rooted in who you know yourself to be, not in how loudly other people choose to judge you. Stay respectful, even when you are unimpressed. Respect reveals the strength of your character most clearly when it is given without being earned by status wealth, or influence. Many people become dismissive the moment they feel smarter, more successful, or more experienced than the person standing in front of them. They interrupt, roll their eyes, speak with unnecessary arrogance, or subtly try to make others feel small. They mistake disrespect for confidence, not realizing that insecurity often hides behind the need to appear superior. True confidence has no reason to humiliate people. When you remain respectful, even after recognizing someone's flaws, mistakes, or limitations, you demonstrate emotional control instead of emotional superiority. You do not need to prove your value by diminishing someone else's. That quiet restraint speaks more loudly than any display of arrogance ever could. Dark confidence understands something important about human nature. The moment you become openly disrespectful, people stop focusing on your ability and start focusing on your attitude. Even those who agree with your point may begin questioning your character. By remaining calm and respectful, you deny others the opportunity to use your behavior against you. Your message becomes stronger because it is not buried beneath unnecessary ego. This approach also makes you difficult to provoke. Some people intentionally act foolish, arrogant, or offensive, hoping you will react emotionally and lose your composure. When you answer with measured respect instead of contempt, they lose the emotional advantage they were trying to create. People naturally trust those who can remain courteous without becoming submissive. They recognize someone whose dignity does not depend on making others feel inferior. That quiet maturity creates lasting respect because it shows your confidence comes from inner stability, not from winning small battles for status or attention. Keep your promises, especially the small ones. Trust is rarely destroyed by one dramatic betrayal. More often, it disappears through countless small disappointments that seem insignificant on their own, saying you will call and forgetting, promising to arrive on time but showing up late, committing to finish something and quietly leaving it undone. Many people believe these small moments do not matter, but they slowly shape the way others measure your reliability. Every kept promise strengthens your reputation. Every broken one quietly weakens it. The smallest promises often reveal the biggest truths about character. Anyone can appear dependable when the situation is important or when everyone is watching. The real test comes when no reward exists for following through. Do you still do what you said you would do? Do your words remain valuable when keeping them requires effort, discipline, or inconvenience? That is where genuine confidence begins to separate itself from empty appearances. Dark confidence understands that every promise is a reflection of self-respect before it is a commitment to someone else. When you repeatedly fail to honor your own words, you teach yourself that your intentions carry little weight. Eventually, that habit spreads into every area of life, making confidence feel unstable because your actions no longer support your identity. People instinctively trust those whose words consistently become reality. They stop questioning your commitment because experience has already answered the question for them. Your reputation begins speaking before you do. This quiet reliability creates a powerful kind of influence. Others know that when you make a promise, it is not casual conversation or temporary enthusiasm. It is a decision backed by action. That consistency makes your presence feel dependable, your character feel solid, and your confidence impossible to separate from the integrity you demonstrate every single day. Do not gossip to gain closeness. False connection is often built on conversations that should never have happened. Gossip creates the illusion of intimacy because sharing secrets, criticizing others, or discussing private lives can make people feel temporarily united. For a moment, it seems as though trust has been created. In reality, the relationship is often built on something fragile. If two people become close by, speaking carelessly about someone else, there is always the silent question of what will eventually be said when one of them leaves the room. Many people gossip because they fear having nothing interesting to offer. They use other people's mistakes as entertainment, believing that shared judgment creates friendship. Instead, it slowly damages their reputation. Even those who laugh along begin to wonder whether they too will become the next subject when they are absent. Trust quietly disappears, even if no one openly admits it. Dark confidence has no need to borrow value from another person's flaws. It understands that real influence comes from meaningful conversation, genuine curiosity, and emotional intelligence, not from spreading information that was never yours to share. A confident person can enjoy someone's company without tearing someone else down to make the moment feel exciting. There is also hidden strength in refusing to participate. While others compete to reveal the latest rumor, you remain calm, change the subject, or simply choose silence. That restraint makes people recognize that your presence is emotionally safe. They learn that private conversations with you are likely to remain private. Respect naturally follows those who protect the dignity of people who are not even present. Others begin trusting you with deeper parts of their lives because your character has already demonstrated discretion. In a world where attention is often earned through exposure, choosing integrity quietly separates you from the crowd and gives your confidence lasting credibility. Never expose your pain to people who enjoy your weakness. Vulnerability is powerful only when it is placed in trustworthy hands. Many people believe that sharing their pain will automatically create understanding, but not everyone who listens is hoping you heal. Some people collect your struggles, disappointments, fears, and emotional wounds because they see them as opportunities rather than responsibilities. They remember what hurts you, not so they can protect you, but so they can quietly use it when the moment benefits them. This is why emotional wisdom matters more than emotional openness. Before revealing the deepest parts of your life, pay attention to how people respond to the pain of others. Do they show compassion, or do they gossip about private struggles? Do they respect weakness, or do they secretly enjoy feeling stronger than someone else? Their treatment of other people's wounds is often a preview of how they will eventually treat yours. Dark confidence understands that privacy is sometimes protection. It does not hide pain because of shame. It protects pain until trust has been earned through consistency, loyalty, and character. A person who repeatedly disrespects your boundaries, celebrates your failures, or minimizes your feelings has already shown they are not a safe place for your truth. This restraint creates quiet strength. You stop searching for comfort from people who are emotionally unsafe. Instead, you become intentional about where your vulnerability lives, knowing that not every listener deserves access to your most difficult experiences. People naturally respect someone who chooses wisdom over emotional desperation. They recognize that your openness is meaningful because it is not available to everyone. Your trust becomes valuable rather than automatic, and your confidence grows stronger because your deepest wounds are no longer exposed to those who mistake compassion for an opportunity to gain power over you. Do not beg for clarity from someone choosing confusion. Confusion is not always the result of poor communication. Sometimes it is carefully maintained because uncertainty gives one person more power than honesty ever could. They send mixed signals, avoid direct answers, change their words, disappear without explanation, or keep you wondering where you truly stand. While you search for certainty, they remain comfortably in control because your emotional energy stays focused on solving a puzzle they have no intention of finishing. Many people mistake confusion for complexity. They believe that if they ask one more question, have one more conversation, or explain themselves more clearly, everything will finally make sense. Instead, they become trapped in a cycle where every answer creates another question. The harder they chase clarity, the further it seems to move away. Dark confidence recognizes a painful truth about human behavior. Someone who genuinely values you will usually make important things clearer over time, not more confusing. Consistent care brings peace, while manipulation often creates uncertainty. When confusion becomes a repeated pattern instead of an occasional misunderstanding, it deserves attention more than explanation. The strongest response is not endless questioning. It is paying attention to actions. If someone continuously avoids honesty, refuses accountability, or keeps you emotionally suspended, their behavior is already providing the answer you keep searching for. You do not need to beg for words that contradict their patterns. People respect those who know when to stop chasing certainty from someone committed to avoiding it. It shows emotional maturity, self-control, and confidence in your own judgment. You stop measuring your worth by another person's willingness to communicate and begin trusting what their actions have quietly been saying all along. Sometimes walking away from confusion is the clearest answer you will ever receive. Treat your time like something expensive. Time becomes valuable the moment you stop giving it away without thought. Many people guard their money more carefully than their hours, even though lost money can often be earned again, while lost time is gone forever. They allow constant interruptions, endless distractions, unnecessary drama, and people who only appear when they need something. Slowly, their days become filled with obligations they never truly chose, leaving little room for the life they actually wanted to build. The way you treat your time teaches people how to treat you. If you are always available, always willing to cancel your priorities, and always ready to sacrifice your schedule for anyone who asks, others begin assuming your time has little value. They may not intend to disrespect you, but your lack of boundaries quietly gives them permission to do so. Dark confidence understands that time is one of the few things that cannot be replaced. It becomes selective about where attention goes, who receives access, and which opportunities deserve commitment. This does not mean becoming selfish or distant. It means recognizing that every unnecessary yes is taken from something more meaningful you could have been building instead. People naturally respect those who protect their time with calm consistency. They notice that your attention is intentional rather than automatic. When you make space for someone, they understand it is a choice, not a habit driven by guilt or fear of disappointing others. There is quiet power in treating your hours like something precious. You stop allowing urgency to control your decisions and stop confusing constant busyness with real progress. Your life becomes shaped by purpose instead of interruption, and that discipline makes your presence feel more valuable because people understand they are receiving something you refuse to waste. Never argue with someone performing for an audience. Not every argument is an honest search for truth. Some people begin disagreements only because they have an audience watching. They raise their voice, exaggerate their confidence, interrupt constantly, or make dramatic statements, not because they want understanding, but because they want attention. Their real goal is not to solve the issue. Their goal is to appear victorious in front of other people, even if the conversation loses all honesty in the process. Many people fall into this trap because they believe every accusation deserves a response. They defend themselves point by point, hoping facts will eventually change the situation. Instead, they unknowingly become part of the performance. The louder they argue, the more entertaining the conflict becomes, giving the other person exactly what they wanted from the beginning. Dark confidence recognizes the difference between a discussion and a spectacle. It understands that someone performing for an audience is usually protecting their image, not pursuing the truth. Logic has little influence over a person whose priority is applause. No matter how reasonable your argument becomes, they will often move the conversation, twist your words, or create fresh distractions simply to keep the attention focused on themselves. The strongest response is often refusing to play the role they have written for you. You stay calm, speak briefly if necessary, or remove yourself entirely. By refusing to feed the performance, you quietly take away its power. Without someone reacting emotionally, the show begins to collapse under its own weight. People respect those who know when silence is stronger than victory. They recognize someone who values dignity more than public approval. That self-control protects your reputation, preserves your peace, and reminds everyone watching that confidence does not need to win every argument to remain powerful. Do not match rude energy. Outclass it. Rudeness often invites imitation. When someone speaks with disrespect, many people instinctively answer with the same attitude, believing that matching aggression proves strength. In reality, the opposite is often true. The moment you allow another person's behavior to dictate your own, they gain influence over you. They have successfully pulled you into their emotional state, turning your reaction into part of their control. People who rely on rudeness are usually expecting resistance. They know how to argue, insult, interrupt, and provoke because those behaviors are familiar to them. What they are often unprepared for is calm confidence. A respectful but firm response removes the emotional reward they were hoping to receive. Instead of seeing you lose control, they are forced to face someone who refuses to be shaped by their negativity. Dark confidence understands that dignity is far more intimidating than anger. You do not lower your standards simply because someone else abandoned theirs. You speak with clarity instead of contempt. You protect your boundaries without becoming hostile. You remain composed without becoming passive. This balance quietly shifts the power because you are responding from discipline rather than emotion. People watching the interaction notice this difference immediately. They may forget the exact words that were exchanged, but they remember who remained in control. Emotional stability often leaves a stronger impression than the sharpest comeback ever could. There is also a deeper advantage. By refusing to mirror disrespect, you protect your own character. You leave the conversation with your integrity untouched instead of carrying regret over words spoken in anger. That quiet restraint earns lasting respect because it proves your behavior is guided by principles, not by the emotional level of the person standing in front of you. Be warm without being available to everyone. Warmth attracts people because it makes them feel welcomed, valued, and understood. However, warmth without limits often becomes an open invitation for anyone seeking attention, convenience, or emotional access. Many people confuse kindness with constant availability. They answer every message immediately, accept every invitation, solve everyone's problems, and make themselves endlessly accessible, believing this is what good people do. Over time, they become emotionally exhausted while others quietly begin expecting what was once appreciated. Real confidence understands that warmth and availability are not the same thing. You can greet people with kindness, listen with genuine interest, and treat others with respect without giving everyone unlimited access to your time, energy, or personal life. The strongest people know that being approachable does not require being constantly reachable. Dark confidence creates this balance naturally. It makes others feel comfortable without making yourself emotionally dependent on their approval. You remain generous with your attitude, but selective with your attention. You understand that not every conversation deserves your time, not every request deserves your yes, and not every person deserves a front row seat in your life simply because they asked. This approach often feels mysterious to others. They experience your warmth, yet they also recognize clear boundaries. They cannot assume your availability, and because of that, your presence becomes more meaningful. People begin respecting your time because you clearly respect it yourself. There is quiet strength in offering kindness without surrendering your peace. Your compassion remains genuine because it comes from choice instead of obligation. Others learn that your attention is a privilege rather than a guarantee, and that balance makes your relationships healthier, your boundaries stronger, and your confidence impossible to mistake for weakness. Never make your confidence depend on attention. Attention is one of the most addictive forms of validation because it creates the illusion of importance without guaranteeing genuine respect. Many people begin measuring their worth by how often they are noticed, praised, included, or admired. They feel confident when everyone is watching and invisible when no one is. As a result, their self-esteem rises and falls with every compliment, every message, every invitation, and every moment of recognition. This creates a fragile identity. When confidence depends on attention, silence starts feeling like rejection. A room that does not notice you feels like failure. Someone else's success begins to feel like your loss. Instead of building a stable sense of self, you become emotionally dependent on constant external confirmation that you matter. Dark confidence breaks this cycle completely. It understands that attention is temporary, unpredictable, and often meaningless. Some of the loudest people receive attention for the wrong reasons, while some of the strongest people build extraordinary lives without demanding to be seen. Their confidence comes from discipline, values, and quiet self-respect rather than public recognition. This mindset creates remarkable emotional freedom. You stop performing for approval and start living according to your own standards. You no longer need to announce every achievement, seek constant reassurance, or compete for the spotlight simply to feel significant. Your peace remains steady, whether people applaud you or overlook you. Ironically, this independence often attracts more respect. People are naturally drawn to someone who is not desperate to be noticed. Your presence feels calm because it is not asking for validation. Others sense that your confidence exists even in empty rooms, when no audience is watching and no praise is being offered. That quiet certainty becomes far more powerful than attention ever could, because it cannot be taken away by someone else's opinion. Do not fear being disliked by the wrong people. Not everyone deserves a place in your life, yet many people spend years trying to earn approval from those who were never capable of valuing them. They become quieter around critical people, hide their opinions to avoid conflict, and slowly reshape their personality to fit expectations that constantly change. In the process, they lose pieces of themselves while chasing acceptance from individuals who benefit most from their insecurity. The fear of being disliked often has very little to do with the present. It comes from the deeper belief that rejection somehow reduces your worth. This belief makes people tolerate disrespect, remain in unhealthy relationships, and avoid necessary boundaries because they are terrified of disappointing someone. The result is a life controlled by the emotional preferences of people who may never truly appreciate them. Dark confidence understands that being disliked is not always evidence that you are wrong. Sometimes it is proof that your standards no longer serve people who preferred your weakness. Those who benefited from your silence may dislike your honesty. Those who enjoyed your constant availability may resent your boundaries. Those who could easily manipulate you may become uncomfortable when they realize they no longer can. This realization changes everything. You stop asking whether everyone approves of your decisions and begin asking whether your choices are consistent with your values. That shift returns authority to where it belongs, inside your own judgment instead of other people's opinions. People naturally respect someone who remains genuine despite criticism. They recognize a person who does not become hostile when disliked, yet refuses to abandon their principles simply to gain acceptance. That quiet courage creates a confidence that cannot be controlled by popularity. because it is rooted in character rather than approval. Stay focused. When others try to distract you with drama, distraction rarely announces itself as a threat. More often, it arrives disguised as conflict, gossip, unnecessary arguments, emotional emergencies, or endless problems that have nothing to do with your purpose. Many people lose months or even years of progress because they keep giving their attention to situations that create excitement but produce nothing of value. While they are busy reacting to every new disturbance, their own goals quietly wait in the background. Drama has a unique ability to steal focus because it creates emotional urgency. It makes everything feel immediate, personal, and impossible to ignore. Someone wants you to choose sides. Someone expects you to defend yourself. Someone is spreading rumors, creating tension, or inviting you into a conflict that was never yours to carry. If you accept every invitation to chaos, your energy slowly becomes consumed by problems that do not improve your life. Dark confidence recognizes that attention is one of the most valuable things you own. It refuses to waste it on distractions designed to provoke emotional reactions. Instead of chasing every conflict, you calmly ask whether the situation deserves your time at all. Many do not. Walking away from unnecessary drama is often a greater display of strength than winning the argument. People naturally respect those who remain committed to their purpose, while others become consumed by emotional noise. They notice that your direction does not change every time someone creates conflict. Your priorities remain clear because they are guided by intention rather than impulse. That quiet discipline makes you difficult to derail. While others lose themselves in temporary chaos, you continue building, learning, and moving forward. Over time, your progress becomes the loudest response to every distraction you refuse to entertain, proving that protecting your focus is one of the greatest forms of power. Do not announce your standards. Live them. Standards become less convincing when they exist only in conversation. Many people enjoy talking about loyalty, discipline, honesty, self-respect, and high values, but their daily actions quietly tell a different story. They constantly declare what they will never tolerate, what kind of people they are, and how they expect to be treated. Yet when those moments actually arrive, they compromise everything they proudly described. Real standards do not need constant advertising. They reveal themselves naturally through decisions, habits, and consistency. You do not have to repeatedly tell people that you value honesty if you always speak truthfully. You do not need to announce that you respect your time if your schedule already reflects it. The strongest principles are not explained every day. They are demonstrated so consistently that people begin recognizing them without being told. Dark confidence understands that words can create expectations, but actions create belief. Someone who constantly talks about having standards often feels the need to convince others. Someone who quietly lives by them has nothing to prove. Their behavior becomes the explanation. They simply walk away from disrespect, protect their boundaries, keep their promises, and choose people who reflect their values without making dramatic speeches about it. This approach also makes manipulation much harder. When your standards exist as actions instead of announcements, people have fewer opportunities to argue, negotiate, or pressure you into changing them. Your behavior answers questions before they are even asked. People naturally respect those whose character remains consistent without needing attention. They learn what you value by watching how you live, not by listening to repeated declarations. That quiet consistency creates a reputation that feels authentic because it is built through evidence rather than performance. In the end, a life that reflects strong standards always speaks louder than a mouth that constantly describes them. Never let loneliness make you accept disrespect. Loneliness has a quiet way of changing what feels acceptable. When people spend enough time craving connection, they sometimes begin lowering standards they once promised never to compromise. They tolerate broken promises, disrespectful behavior, emotional neglect, and constant inconsistency simply because having someone feels less frightening than having no one. What once looked unacceptable slowly begins to feel normal, not because it is healthy, but because loneliness has made almost any attention seem valuable. This is where many people lose themselves. Instead of asking whether a relationship brings peace, they only ask whether it prevents them from being alone. They become grateful for the smallest signs of affection, even when those moments are surrounded by repeated disappointment. Their desire for connection becomes stronger than their desire for dignity, and little by little, they begin accepting treatment they would never advise someone they love to endure. Dark confidence understands that loneliness is temporary, but self-respect is foundational. It refuses to exchange lasting dignity for temporary companionship. Being alone may feel uncomfortable, but constantly explaining your worth, begging for consistency, or surviving on emotional crumbs slowly damages something much deeper than solitude ever could. People who respect themselves know that empty company cannot cure an empty heart. Real connection brings stability, honesty, and mutual care. If someone's presence consistently creates anxiety, confusion, or humiliation, their company is not solving loneliness. It is simply distracting you from it. There is powerful freedom in choosing peace over desperate attachment. You stop chasing anyone who makes you question your value and begin trusting that the right relationships will never require you to abandon yourself. That quiet decision strengthens your confidence because it proves your dignity is no longer available for negotiation, even when no one else is standing beside you. Keep your emotions real, but not reckless. Emotions become dangerous when they control your actions instead of informing them. Many people believe honesty means expressing every feeling the moment it appears. They speak while angry, make decisions while hurt, send messages while frustrated, and reveal private thoughts while overwhelmed. Although this may feel authentic, it often creates consequences that remain long after the emotion itself has passed. Temporary feelings end, but impulsive words and actions can leave permanent damage. Healthy emotional expression is not about hiding what you feel. It is about giving your emotions enough space to settle before allowing them to guide your choices. Confidence does not require pretending to be unaffected. It requires understanding that every feeling deserves acknowledgement, but not every feeling deserves immediate action. The strongest people experience disappointment, fear, sadness, and anger just like everyone else. The difference is that they choose when and how those emotions are expressed. Dark confidence understands that emotional control creates psychological freedom. When others realize they cannot predict your behavior simply by provoking your feelings, they lose one of the easiest ways to influence you. Instead of reacting automatically, you respond deliberately. You remain honest without becoming explosive, vulnerable without becoming careless, and passionate without becoming unstable. This balance also protects your relationships. People feel safer around someone whose emotions are genuine yet measured. They know your kindness is sincere, your boundaries are consistent, and your reactions are guided by wisdom rather than impulse. That creates trust because your behavior does not constantly shift with every passing mood. Respect grows naturally when your emotions are both authentic and disciplined. Others recognize that your heart is real, but your judgment remains stronger than temporary feelings. That quiet self-control makes your confidence feel grounded, dependable, and remarkably difficult to manipulate through emotional pressure alone. Do not explain your growth to people who liked your old weakness. Growth often changes relationships in ways success never can. The people who were comfortable with your insecurity Your constant availability, your silence, or your need for approval may become uncomfortable the moment you begin setting boundaries and carrying yourself differently. They may ask why you have changed, accuse you of becoming distant, or suggest that confidence has made you arrogant. In reality, they are not reacting to your growth. They are reacting to the loss of the version of you that was easier to control. Many people make the mistake of trying to explain every positive change. They justify their new boundaries, defend their healthier habits, and repeatedly reassure others that they are still the same person. The more they explain, however, the more they invite debate about decisions that were never meant to be negotiated. Instead of enjoying their progress, they become trapped defending it. Dark confidence understands that real growth speaks through behavior, not long conversations. You do not need everyone to approve of the person you are becoming. Those who genuinely care about you will recognize that your confidence is not an attack on them. They will celebrate your healing instead of mourning your weakness. The people who preferred your old struggles often benefited from them. They enjoyed being able to influence your choices, ignore your boundaries, or rely on your fear of disappointing them. Your strength quietly removes those advantages, which is why resistance sometimes appears the moment you begin respecting yourself. People naturally respect someone who allows their actions to explain their transformation. You stop apologizing for becoming healthier, wiser, and more emotionally stable. Instead, you continue growing without seeking permission from those who only felt comfortable when you were easier to manage. That quiet confidence becomes the clearest evidence that your life is no longer controlled by the expectations of your past. Speak clearly, even when your voice is quiet. Volume is often mistaken for confidence, but clarity is what truly commands respect. Many people believe they must speak louder, faster, or more forcefully to be taken seriously. They raise their voice to compete with stronger personalities, hoping intensity will make their words matter. Yet loudness without clarity quickly becomes noise, while quiet certainty has a way of drawing attention without demanding it. A quiet voice is not a weakness unless it carries hesitation. When you mumble, apologize for every opinion, or leave your sentences unfinished because you fear disagreement, people begin listening to your uncertainty instead of your message. They interrupt more often, dismiss your thoughts more easily, and assume your confidence is as fragile as your delivery. The problem is rarely the volume. It is the lack of conviction behind it. Dark confidence understands that every word should arrive with intention. You do not rush through your thoughts or hide behind unnecessary explanations. You speak slowly enough to be understood, clearly enough to remove confusion, and calmly enough to show that your emotions are serving your judgment rather than controlling it. Your voice does not need to dominate the room because your certainty already fills the space. This creates a powerful psychological effect. People naturally lean closer when they realize they must pay attention instead of being overwhelmed. Your quiet delivery encourages listening rather than competition, making your words feel more deliberate and memorable. Respect grows when others recognize that your confidence is not measured by volume. It is measured by the steadiness of your presence and the precision of your communication. You do not need to shout to prove your strength. Your calm, unmistakable clarity speaks with an authority that noise can never replace. Never let someone rush your answer. Pressure often hides behind urgency. Some people ask for immediate answers not because time truly matters, but because they know rushed decisions usually favor the person creating the pressure. They interrupt your thinking, demand instant agreement, or make you feel guilty for taking a moment to reflect. The faster you react, the less likely you are to notice what they are actually asking, what they are avoiding, or what they expect you to sacrifice. Many people mistake speed for confidence. They believe answering immediately makes them appear decisive, intelligent, or capable. In reality, quick responses often come from discomfort rather than certainty. They fear silence, dislike making others wait, or worry that taking time to think will make them appear unsure. As a result, they agree to things they later regret, reveal information they should have kept private, or commit themselves before fully understanding the situation. Dark confidence is never intimidated by a pause. It understands that careful thinking is not weakness, it is discipline. You are allowed to consider your options, ask questions, or simply take a breath before responding. A confident person values accuracy more than speed because they know that one thoughtful answer carries more weight than 10 careless ones. This calm approach also changes the emotional balance of a conversation. People quickly realize they cannot control you simply by increasing pressure or creating false urgency. Your decisions remain your own because they are made deliberately, not emotionally. Respect naturally follows those who refuse to surrender their judgment to someone else's timeline. Others learn that your answers are intentional, your commitments are genuine, and your boundaries cannot be rushed into disappearing. That quiet patience protects your peace, strengthens your credibility, and reminds everyone around you that confidence is measured by thoughtful choices, not hurried reactions. Do not become overly friendly with people who test your boundaries. Boundaries are rarely crossed by accident. More often, they are tested little by little through small requests, subtle disrespect, repeated interruptions, or behavior that quietly ignores your comfort. Many people overlook these moments because they want to appear understanding, easygoing, or kind. They convince themselves that being friendlier will improve the relationship. Instead, excessive friendliness often teaches the other person that your limits are flexible and your standards can be negotiated. People who repeatedly test boundaries are usually observing your response as much as your words. If they ignore your time, dismiss your feelings, pressure your decisions, or repeatedly cross lines you have already explained, they are learning what they can get away with. The more warmly you reward that behavior without consequences, the more confident they become in continuing it. Dark confidence understands that kindness should never replace discernment. You can remain respectful without offering deeper access to someone who has already shown a lack of respect for your limits. Trust is built through consistent behavior, not through repeated opportunities given to people who refuse to honor simple boundaries. This does not require anger or confrontation. Sometimes the strongest response is becoming less available, less personal, and less emotionally invested. Your energy changes before your words do. The person begins to notice that closeness is earned through respect, not demanded through persistence. People naturally respect those who protect their boundaries without becoming hostile. They see someone who values relationships but values self-respect even more. That balance creates emotional stability because your kindness is no longer automatic. It is thoughtful, intentional, and offered to people who have demonstrated they can handle it with care. In the end, the healthiest relationships are not built by pleasing everyone, but by wisely choosing who deserves your trust and your warmth. Let people earn deeper access to you. Not everyone who enters your life deserves to reach the deepest parts of it. Many people reveal everything about themselves within days of meeting someone new. They quickly share their dreams, fears, personal struggles, family problems, and emotional wounds, believing that openness automatically creates closeness. While vulnerability is essential for meaningful relationships, offering it too early often places your trust in people whose character has not yet been tested. Trust should grow through observation, not excitement. The beginning of any relationship is usually filled with good impressions, kind words, and promises. Almost anyone can appear genuine for a short period of time. Character reveals itself through consistency, especially when life becomes inconvenient, disagreements appear, or expectations are challenged. That is why time remains one of the greatest tests of trust. Dark confidence understands that access is something valuable. It does not make people earn basic kindness or respect, but it does make them earn emotional intimacy. Instead of opening every door at once, you allow each level of trust to develop naturally. As someone proves their honesty, loyalty, discretion, and consistency, they gradually receive greater access to your thoughts, your experiences, and your private world. This creates a powerful emotional balance. You remain warm and genuine, yet you are not easily read or emotionally exposed. People understand that being close to you is a privilege built through actions rather than quick chemistry or persuasive words. Those with good intentions appreciate this process because they know lasting trust cannot be rushed. Respect naturally grows around those who value themselves enough to protect what matters most. Your heart is not hidden out of fear, but guarded with wisdom. By allowing people to earn deeper access over time, you create stronger relationships, avoid unnecessary disappointment, and ensure that your confidence is strengthened by discernment instead of weakened by misplaced trust. Stop trying to look harmless to people who fear your strength. Many people spend years making themselves smaller just to keep others comfortable. They hide their ambition, soften their opinions, downplay their achievements, and pretend not to notice their own abilities because they fear being seen as intimidating. At first, this feels like humility. In reality, it often becomes a habit of self-erasure. The more you reduce yourself to protect someone else's comfort, the further you move away from your authentic identity. Not everyone is threatened by strength, but those who are will rarely become comfortable no matter how much you shrink. If your confidence reminds someone of their insecurity, your silence will not heal it. If your discipline exposes their excuses, pretending to be less capable will not change how they feel. People who fear your growth often expect you to remain in the version of yourself that made them feel safe by comparison. Dark confidence refuses to apologize for healthy strength. It understands that confidence does not become arrogance simply because someone else feels uncomfortable. You do not need to act weaker, less intelligent, less successful, or less certain to make insecure people feel accepted. Real humility is not denying your gifts. It is carrying them without pride while refusing to hide them. There is quiet power in standing comfortably inside your own potential. You stop explaining why you are growing, stop pretending your standards are lower than they are, and stop acting uncertain just to appear less threatening. Your confidence becomes natural rather than performative. People who genuinely value you will respect your growth instead of fearing it. Those who only preferred you when you were easier to overlook may distance themselves, and that is often a healthy outcome. Your responsibility is not to appear harmless. It is to become fully yourself without allowing fear of other people's discomfort to limit your potential. Never confuse being needed with being respected. Being needed can feel deeply rewarding because it creates the impression that your presence is valuable. People call you when they have a problem, ask for your advice, depend on your support, or expect you to fix situations no one else wants to handle. Over time, it becomes easy to believe that constant dependence is proof of genuine appreciation. Yet being useful and being respected are not always the same thing. Someone can rely on your help every day while giving very little respect to the person providing it. Many people remain trapped in one-sided relationships because they mistake responsibility for importance. They keep sacrificing their time, energy, and peace, believing their efforts will eventually earn deeper appreciation. Instead, their generosity slowly becomes an expectation. The more they give without boundaries, the more others begin treating their support as something guaranteed rather than something valuable. Dark confidence understands the difference between serving others and losing yourself. A respectful relationship values your opinions, your boundaries, your time, and your well-being, not just what you can provide. If someone only seeks you when they need something but disappears when you need support, they are benefiting from your usefulness, not honoring your worth. This realization changes the way you build relationships. You stop measuring your value by how many people depend on you and begin paying attention to how they treat you when you have nothing to offer except your presence. That is where genuine respect becomes visible. People naturally respect those who refuse to earn love through constant sacrifice. They recognize someone who helps from strength instead of obligation and who understands that their value does not disappear the moment they stop solving other people's problems. That quiet confidence protects your dignity because it reminds you that being respected will always matter more than simply being needed. Do not make yourself smaller to protect someone's ego. Many people quietly reduce themselves to make others feel more comfortable. They hide their knowledge, minimize their achievements, soften their opinions, and pretend they are less capable than they truly are because they fear making someone feel insecure. At first, this may seem like kindness or humility. Over time, however, it becomes a habit of denying your own growth simply to protect another person's fragile sense of importance. This pattern often develops in relationships where confidence is mistaken for competition. Instead of celebrating your progress, some people become uncomfortable whenever you succeed, improve, or speak with certainty. They expect you to remain in the version of yourself that made them feel superior. The moment you begin standing taller, they may accuse you of changing, becoming arrogant, or forgetting where you came from. Their discomfort is not created by your confidence. It is created by their inability to celebrate someone else's strength. Dark confidence refuses to participate in this silent performance. It understands that genuine humility does not require pretending to be less intelligent, less successful, or less capable than you really are. You can remain respectful without apologizing for your growth. You can celebrate your achievements without humiliating anyone else. The goal is not to appear bigger than others. The goal is simply to stop pretending you are smaller. People who truly respect you will never ask you to shrink so they can feel taller. They will appreciate your progress because it inspires rather than threatens them. Those who only accepted you while you doubted yourself may become uncomfortable, but that discomfort belongs to them, not to you. Lasting confidence begins the moment you stop carrying the responsibility for protecting other people's egos. Your purpose is to become the fullest version of yourself, not the smallest version that makes everyone else feel comfortable. Stay grounded when praise comes. Praise has the power to lift your confidence, but it can also quietly distort your judgment if you allow it to define you. Many people work hard to earn recognition, and when it finally arrives, they begin measuring their value by the admiration they receive. Their decisions slowly shift from pursuing excellence to protecting an image. Instead of asking, "Am I growing?" they begin asking, "Do people still admire me?" The moment applause becomes your foundation, your confidence becomes dependent on something you cannot control. Compliments are enjoyable, but they are temporary. People's opinions change, trends change, and attention moves quickly. If your identity is built on praise, you will constantly fear the day it disappears. You may avoid taking risks, become afraid of failure, or stop improving because you are too busy protecting the version of yourself that others already celebrate. Growth quietly slows, the moment approval becomes more important than progress. Dark confidence receives praise with gratitude, but never with dependence. It appreciates recognition, without allowing it to become a replacement for discipline. Whether people applaud your work, your appearance, your character, or your success, your daily habits remain unchanged. You understand that today's compliments do not remove tomorrow's responsibility to keep learning, improving, and staying true to your values. People naturally respect those who remain humble without pretending their achievements do not exist. They notice someone who accepts appreciation graciously but continues working with the same focus as before. That consistency creates trust because your confidence does not rise and fall with public opinion. True strength is revealed by what happens after success. Staying grounded reminds you that praise is a gift, not an identity. When your character remains steady despite admiration, your confidence becomes rooted in who you are rather than in how loudly the world chooses to celebrate you. Stay steady when rejection comes. Rejection has a way of making people question everything about themselves. One opportunity disappears, one relationship ends, one application is declined, or one person walks away, and suddenly they begin believing they were never enough in the first place. Instead of seeing rejection as one experience, they allow it to become their identity. Their confidence collapses because they mistake another person's decision for a final judgment on their worth. The truth is that rejection often says more about timing, compatibility, priorities, or perspective than it does about your value. Not every closed door exists because you were incapable. Sometimes it exists because your path simply does not belong there. The danger begins when you carry every rejection as proof that you should become smaller, quieter, or less willing to try again. That is how temporary disappointment becomes permanent limitation. Dark confidence refuses to let rejection rewrite its identity. It allows disappointment to be felt without allowing it to become a definition. You acknowledge the pain, learn whatever lesson is available, and continue moving forward without surrendering your self-respect. You understand that growth requires entering situations where rejection is possible, and avoiding rejection completely usually means avoiding meaningful progress as well. This mindset creates remarkable emotional resilience. People quickly realize that your confidence is not built on constant success. It survives setbacks because it comes from within rather than from perfect outcomes. You do not become arrogant after victories or broken after losses. Your direction remains steady because your purpose is stronger than temporary approval. Respect naturally follows those who can experience rejection without losing themselves. Others see someone who remains composed, determined, and grounded even when life becomes difficult. That quiet resilience sends a powerful message that your worth is not decided by one person's opinion, one missed opportunity, or one closed door, but by the courage to keep moving despite them. Do not chase closure from people who gave you lessons. Many people spend years waiting for one final conversation that they believe will heal everything. They hope the person who hurt them will finally explain, apologize, admit their mistakes, or provide the answers that have been missing for so long. They replay old memories, imagine different endings, and keep emotional doors open for someone who has already walked away. Without realizing it, they give the past more power than the future. The painful truth is that not everyone who leaves your life will also give you closure. Some people disappear without explanation. Others rewrite the story to protect themselves. Some know exactly how much pain they caused and simply choose not to acknowledge it. Waiting for understanding from someone who already showed you their character often keeps the wound alive far longer than the event itself. Dark confidence understands that some people enter your life to teach, not to stay. Their behavior becomes the lesson. The betrayal teaches discernment. The disappointment teaches stronger boundaries. The rejection teaches self-respect. The silence teaches you who deserves your trust. Once the lesson has been learned, continuing to chase emotional resolution only gives unnecessary control back to the person who created the pain. There is quiet freedom in accepting that closure is often an internal decision rather than a gift someone else provides. You stop waiting for the perfect explanation and begin honoring what their actions already revealed. That shift allows your energy to return to your own growth instead of remaining trapped in unanswered questions. People naturally respect those who know when to stop chasing the past. They recognize someone who can learn, heal, and move forward without requiring every chapter to end neatly. Sometimes the greatest closure is not hearing one more word. It is realizing you no longer need one. Never accept disrespect, because it came with a smile. Disrespect does not always arrive through anger or obvious hostility. Sometimes it hides behind laughter, playful teasing, sarcasm, or comments that are quickly dismissed as just a joke. Because the delivery appears friendly, many people ignore the uncomfortable feeling it creates. They smile back, laugh along, or pretend nothing happened, convincing themselves they are simply being too sensitive. In reality, their instincts are often recognizing something their mind is trying to excuse. People who repeatedly disguise disrespect as humor are usually testing your boundaries. They want to see how much they can say before you object. If you continue rewarding those moments with laughter or silence, they begin believing that your dignity has no real protection. What starts as a small comment gradually becomes open disrespect, because every previous incident quietly taught them there would be no consequences. Dark confidence understands that kindness does not require pretending to enjoy being diminished. You do not have to create an argument over every careless remark, but you also do not need to reward disrespect with fake amusement. A calm expression, a measured response, or simply refusing to laugh can communicate more than an emotional confrontation ever could. It reminds people that your self-respect is not available for entertainment. This approach often changes the emotional balance immediately. Those with good intentions usually recognize the impact of their words and adjust. Those who become defensive or continue pushing have revealed something important about their character without you needing to force the truth. People naturally respect someone who refuses to normalize disrespect simply because it arrived wrapped in charm. They see a person whose standards remain consistent regardless of tone or presentation. That quiet firmness protects your dignity because it teaches others that respect is measured by substance, not by the smile that happens to accompany the words. Be polite, but never passive. Politeness is often mistaken for weakness because many people confuse kindness with surrender. They believe being respectful means avoiding conflict at all costs, staying silent when something is wrong, or allowing others to cross their boundaries without resistance. In reality, politeness and passivity are completely different. One is a choice rooted in character. The other is often driven by fear of rejection, confrontation, or disapproval. A passive person usually sacrifices their own needs to keep everyone else comfortable. They agree when they want to refuse, apologize for things that are not their fault, and remain quiet even when they know they are being treated unfairly. At first, others may appreciate how easy they are to deal with. Over time, however, that same behavior often attracts people who mistake patience for permission and kindness for compliance. Dark confidence chooses a different path. It speaks with respect while standing firmly on its principles. It can say no without becoming rude. It can disagree without becoming hostile. It can defend a boundary without raising its voice. This balance is powerful because it removes the false choice between being kind and being strong. You do not have to become aggressive to protect yourself, and you do not have to abandon your dignity to appear polite. People naturally respect those who communicate with calm certainty. They recognize someone who treats others well but refuses to be pushed into silence. Your words remain thoughtful, your tone remains controlled, yet your position remains clear. That quiet firmness creates lasting influence because people learn that your kindness is genuine, not negotiable. They understand that while you value respect, you also expect it in return. This combination of courtesy and conviction makes your confidence feel mature, dependable, and remarkably difficult to manipulate. Let your standards disappoint people. Strong standards will inevitably disappoint those who benefited from your lack of them. The moment you begin protecting your time, refusing disrespect, expecting honesty, or walking away from unhealthy situations, some people will become uncomfortable. They may accuse you of changing, becoming difficult, or thinking too highly of yourself. What they are often mourning is not the loss of your kindness, but the loss of easy access to someone who no longer accepts less than they deserve. Many people lower their expectations simply to avoid disappointing others. They say yes when they want to say no, ignore behavior that hurts them, and repeatedly sacrifice their peace to keep everyone else happy. For a while, this creates harmony on the surface, but underneath it quietly builds frustration, resentment, and emotional exhaustion. Every compromise made against your own values slowly weakens your relationship with yourself. Dark confidence understands that disappointment is sometimes the natural cost of self-respect. If your standards never upset anyone, they may not truly be standards at all. Healthy boundaries will always remove people who only valued your convenience. Those who respected you because you were easy to use will struggle when your limits become firm. The right people respond differently. They may need time to adjust, but they will ultimately respect your consistency because they understand your standards are not designed to control others. They exist to protect your character, your peace, and the quality of your relationships. Real confidence is not measured by how many people remain comfortable around you. It is measured by your willingness to remain true to your values, even when doing so disappoints those who expected unlimited access to your time, energy, or emotional availability. Your standards are not there to please everyone. They are there to protect the life you are building. Never confuse noise with power. Power rarely announces itself the way insecurity does. Many people mistake loud voices, dramatic reactions, constant talking, and aggressive behavior for genuine strength. They assume the person who dominates every conversation, interrupts everyone, or demands attention must naturally be the most influential. In reality, noise often exists to cover weakness rather than confidence. The louder someone needs to appear, the more likely they are trying to convince others of something they have not yet convinced themselves. Real power feels different. It is steady rather than frantic. It does not need to prove itself in every conversation or win every disagreement. A truly confident person can remain calm while others become emotional because their identity is not threatened by silence or by another person's opinion. They understand that authority is built through consistency, character, and self-control, not through volume or intimidation. Dark confidence recognizes this difference immediately. Instead of being impressed by whoever speaks the loudest, it pays attention to who remains composed under pressure, who keeps their promises, who influences without forcing, and who earns respect without demanding it. Those qualities are far more difficult to imitate than dramatic displays of confidence. This awareness also protects you from manipulation. People who rely on noise often create urgency, confusion, or emotional pressure to make others react before they have time to think. When you recognize that loud behavior is not the same as real authority, You stop being intimidated by performance and start evaluating substance instead. People naturally respect those who refuse to be distracted by appearances. Your confidence becomes grounded in observation rather than impression. You stop chasing the loudest voice in the room and begin trusting the quiet strength that consistently produces results. In the end, genuine power does not need to announce itself because its influence is already speaking. Do not explain your worth like you are defending a case. Your worth loses its strength the moment it becomes something you feel obligated to prove. Many people spend their lives presenting evidence that they deserve respect, love, opportunities, or basic decency. They explain how loyal they are, how much they have sacrificed, how hard they have worked, or how deeply they care, hoping that if they provide enough reasons, someone will finally recognize their value. The tragedy is that people who truly respect you rarely require a courtroom of explanations. When you constantly defend your worth, you quietly place other people in the position of judge. Their approval becomes the verdict you wait for. Their opinion begins deciding whether you feel confident or insecure. Instead of standing firmly in your own identity, you start arguing for permission to be appreciated, accepted, or treated well. Dark confidence refuses to play that role. It understands that value is demonstrated through character, consistency, and standards, not through endless persuasion. If someone repeatedly overlooks your efforts, dismisses your contributions, or questions your value despite your actions, another explanation is unlikely to change their perspective. Their inability to recognize your worth is not automatically evidence that it does not exist. This realization creates tremendous emotional freedom. You stop exhausting yourself trying to convince people who have already chosen not to see you. Your energy shifts from defending your value to living in a way that reflects it. Your boundaries become stronger, your choices become clearer, and your confidence no longer depends on winning arguments about your importance. People naturally respect those who carry themselves with quiet certainty. They recognize someone who knows their value without announcing it repeatedly. Your presence begins speaking where your explanations once failed, because confidence rooted in self-respect always carries more weight than confidence desperately seeking a favorable verdict from someone else. Move with purpose, not nervous energy. The way you move often reveals what your words are trying to hide. Nervous energy appears in rushed steps, constant fidgeting, unnecessary talking, restless gestures, and the feeling that you must always be doing something to justify your presence. Many people live this way without noticing it. They hurry through conversations, interrupt silence, check their surroundings repeatedly, and react to everything around them. Their body quietly communicates uncertainty long before they ever speak. Purpose creates a completely different impression. A person moving with intention does not waste unnecessary motion. They walk without rushing, listen without constantly interrupting, and make decisions without appearing frantic. Their actions feel deliberate because they are not trying to prove their importance through constant activity. Every movement has a reason, and every pause feels comfortable rather than awkward. Dark confidence understands that people instinctively notice emotional stability before they notice confidence itself. Someone who is always rushing often appears controlled by external pressure. Someone who moves calmly appears to be directing their own life instead of reacting to everyone else's expectations. This quiet composure creates an unspoken sense of authority because it suggests that your mind is leading your actions rather than your emotions. There is also a deeper psychological advantage. People who move with nervous energy are easier to influence because pressure quickly changes their behavior. Those who move with purpose remain steady even when the environment becomes chaotic. Their pace is chosen, not imposed. Respect naturally follows this kind of presence. Others begin to associate you with clarity, discipline, and self-control because your actions consistently reflect those qualities. You stop looking like someone trying to keep up with life and begin looking like someone who has decided exactly where they are going, making your confidence feel calm, intentional, and difficult to disturb. Keep your words so strongly that people trust your silence. Trust is not built through impressive promises. It is built through repeated proof that your words become reality. Many people speak with confidence about what they intend to do, what they believe, or how dependable they are, but their actions rarely match their statements. Over time, people stop listening closely because experience has taught them that their words carry little weight. A promise that is frequently broken eventually becomes no different from empty conversation. Real credibility grows in the opposite direction. Every time you follow through, even when it is inconvenient, difficult, or unnoticed, you quietly strengthen your reputation. You become someone whose commitments no longer require constant reminders or dramatic reassurance. People begin believing you before the outcome arrives because your history has already answered the question for them. Dark confidence understands that silence becomes powerful when your character has already done the talking. You no longer feel the need to convince everyone of your intentions, defend your reliability, or repeatedly explain what you are going to accomplish. Your consistency has created enough evidence that people naturally expect you to do what you said. Even when you say very little, others feel secure because they trust the person behind the words. This creates an uncommon form of influence. Instead of demanding belief, you quietly earn it through discipline. Your absence from unnecessary conversation becomes just as meaningful as your presence because people know silence from you does not mean uncertainty. It often means action is already taking place. Respect naturally follows someone whose word has become a reflection of their identity. Others stop measuring you by enthusiasm or persuasive speech and begin measuring you by your record of keeping commitments. When your integrity becomes that dependable, even your silence carries credibility because people have learned that your actions will arrive whether you announce them or not. Do not reveal insecurity through constant agreement. Agreement becomes a problem when it replaces honesty. Many people say yes before they have even considered their own opinion. They nod along with every conversation, laugh at jokes they do not find funny, support ideas they secretly question, and avoid disagreement because they fear rejection. At first, this makes them appear pleasant and easy to get along with. Over time, however, people begin sensing that their agreement is driven less by conviction and more by the desire to be accepted. Constant agreement quietly communicates insecurity. It suggests that keeping other people comfortable matters more than expressing your genuine thoughts. When someone never disagrees, never questions, and never offers a different perspective, others often stop viewing their opinions as meaningful. Ironically, the very behavior meant to gain approval can slowly reduce respect because it signals a lack of confidence in one's own judgment. Dark confidence understands that disagreement does not have to become conflict. You can respectfully hold a different opinion without attacking anyone or creating unnecessary tension. Speaking honestly with calm confidence demonstrates that your identity is not dependent on pleasing everyone around you. You value harmony, but not at the cost of your authenticity. This also protects you from manipulation. People who seek control often look for those who constantly agree because they know such individuals are less likely to challenge unfair treatment or unreasonable expectations. The ability to say, "I see it differently," or "I don't agree," with composure immediately changes that dynamic. People naturally respect someone whose agreement is thoughtful rather than automatic. They understand that when you support an idea, it comes from genuine belief instead of emotional dependence. Your words carry greater value because they reflect independent thinking, making your confidence feel authentic, grounded, and impossible to buy with approval alone. Never act impressed by arrogance. Arrogance often survives because too many people reward it with admiration. When someone constantly boasts about their success, talks down to others, demands attention, or behaves as though they are above everyone else, many people instinctively become impressed or intimidated. They mistake confidence for superiority and begin treating that person as more important simply because they appear certain of themselves. In doing so, they quietly reinforce the very behavior that seeks validation through dominance. True confidence recognizes the difference immediately. Arrogance is usually loud because it needs witnesses. It depends on comparison, status, and the constant need to feel above someone else. Genuine self-confidence has no such requirement. It does not need to remind people of its value because it is secure enough to let actions speak. The person who truly knows their worth rarely feels the need to advertise it. Dark confidence refuses to be emotionally influenced by arrogance. It remains respectful, but it does not become overly impressed, eager to please, or desperate for approval. Instead of reacting to someone's inflated image, it quietly observes their character, consistency, and treatment of others. It understands that impressive words mean very little when they are unsupported by humility and integrity. This calm response often unsettles arrogant people. They are accustomed to receiving admiration, fear, or constant agreement. When they encounter someone who remains composed and unimpressed without becoming disrespectful, they lose one of the easiest ways to establish control over the interaction. People naturally respect those who evaluate character instead of performance. They notice someone who cannot be manipulated by status, loud personalities, or exaggerated confidence. Your attention becomes valuable because it is earned through substance rather than appearance. That quiet independence protects your judgment and reminds others that true strength is measured by humility, not by the size of someone's ego or the volume of their self-praise. Listen deeply, then speak with precision. Most people enter conversations with the intention of replying rather than understanding. While someone else is speaking, they are already preparing their next sentence, searching for a clever response, or waiting for an opportunity to interrupt. As a result, they miss important details hidden beneath the words. They hear the story but overlook the emotion. They catch the facts but ignore the intention. Their responses become rushed because they are based on assumptions instead of genuine understanding. Deep listening creates a completely different kind of influence. It allows you to notice hesitation, changes in tone, repeated patterns, and emotions people never directly express. You begin seeing the difference between what someone says and what they actually mean. This level of attention gives your responses unusual accuracy because they are built on careful observation rather than quick reaction. Dark confidence understands that precision is impossible without patience. Instead of speaking constantly, you gather information first. You allow people to reveal themselves naturally. The more they talk, the more they expose their priorities, fears, motivations, and character. By the time you respond, you no longer need many words because you are addressing the real issue instead of the surface conversation. This creates a powerful psychological effect. People feel genuinely understood because your responses reach places most others never notice. At the same time, they become aware that careless words will not easily mislead you. Your attention quietly removes the advantage from those who rely on manipulation, exaggeration, or emotional confusion. Respect naturally follows someone whose words consistently carry meaning. Others learn that when you finally speak, it is worth listening because you have already taken the time to understand. Your silence becomes thoughtful instead of empty, and your voice gains authority because every sentence is supported by observation, discipline, and genuine awareness rather than the need to simply be heard. Do not let people use your kindness as a remote control. Kindness becomes dangerous when other people learn they can control it. Some individuals quickly recognize compassionate people and begin using guilt, emotional pressure, disappointment, or constant requests to influence their decisions. They know you dislike letting people down, so they remind you of everything you have done together. They know you care deeply, so they make you feel responsible for problems that were never yours to solve. Before long, your kindness is no longer something you choose. It becomes something they expect to control. This pattern often develops slowly. At first, helping feels natural because you genuinely want to support others. Over time, however, the requests become demands, appreciation becomes expectation, and your willingness to give is quietly transformed into an obligation. You begin saying yes when your mind is already exhausted, apologizing for protecting your own peace, and carrying burdens that belong to someone else simply because you fear being seen as selfish. Dark confidence understands that genuine kindness can never exist without freedom. If you cannot refuse, your kindness is no longer generosity. It has become compliance. Real compassion comes from choice, not emotional manipulation. It allows you to help with an open heart while still protecting your boundaries, your energy, and your emotional well-being. This balance changes the way people interact with you. Those who truly care will respect your limits because they value you beyond what you can provide. Those who become angry the moment you stop saying yes reveal that they were attached to your usefulness rather than your presence. People naturally respect someone whose kindness cannot be controlled through guilt or pressure. They recognize that your generosity is sincere because it is freely given, not emotionally extracted. That quiet independence protects both your compassion and your confidence, ensuring that your good nature remains a strength instead of becoming someone else's tool for control. Protect your peace like it has a price. Peace is one of the most valuable things you will ever possess, yet it is often treated as though it costs nothing. People willingly trade it for unnecessary arguments, unhealthy relationships, constant drama, endless explanations, and the impossible task of keeping everyone happy. They sacrifice their emotional stability one small compromise at a time until anxiety, frustration, and exhaustion begin feeling normal. What they fail to realize is that every careless decision quietly withdraws from the account where their peace is stored. People reveal what they value by what they refuse to waste. Someone who protects their money thinks carefully before spending it. Someone who protects their health chooses wisely what they consume. In the same way, a person who values peace becomes selective about the conversations they enter, the people they trust, the environments they remain in, and the emotional burdens they agree to carry. They understand that not every battle deserves their attention simply because it exists. Dark confidence treats peace as something earned through discipline. It walks away from unnecessary conflict without feeling guilty. It refuses to entertain constant negativity, emotional manipulation, or relationships that repeatedly disturb the mind. This is not avoidance, it is wisdom. Protecting your peace means recognizing that your emotional energy is limited and deserves to be invested where it creates growth rather than chaos. People naturally respect those who remain calm because they know that calmness has been protected intentionally. Your steady presence reflects careful choices rather than fortunate circumstances. Others begin realizing that access to your time, attention, and emotional world is no longer automatic. The greatest form of confidence is knowing that your inner peace is too valuable to exchange for temporary approval, pointless conflict, or people who repeatedly prove they are not worthy of disturbing it. Never become loud just because someone is not listening. Many people believe that if someone refuses to hear them, the solution is to speak louder. They repeat themselves with more emotion, raise their voice, argue harder, and desperately try to force understanding. What begins as a conversation slowly turns into a struggle for attention, where frustration replaces clarity and emotion replaces wisdom. In the end, they often walk away feeling unheard and emotionally exhausted, not because they lacked good points, but because they surrendered their composure in the process. Not everyone fails to listen because they cannot hear you. Some people have already decided not to understand. Others are more interested in defending their own position than considering yours. A few intentionally ignore your words because they know frustration may eventually make you lose control. The louder you become, the easier it becomes for them to shift attention away from your message and toward your reaction. Dark confidence refuses to play that game. It understands that volume does not create influence. If calm words cannot reach someone who has chosen not to listen, shouting rarely changes the outcome. Instead, it quietly reveals that the conversation may no longer deserve your energy. You speak clearly, respectfully, and with conviction, but you never allow another person's refusal to listen to determine the way you carry yourself. There is remarkable strength in remaining composed when someone expects you to explode. Your calmness communicates that your confidence does not depend on forcing agreement or winning every conversation. You know your value is not measured by another person's willingness to listen. People naturally respect someone who protects their dignity under pressure. They see a person who values self-control more than emotional victory. That quiet discipline makes your words carry greater authority because they come from clarity rather than frustration. Sometimes the strongest response is not speaking louder. It is recognizing when silence has become wiser than another sentence. Do not fear being alone at the top of your standards. Strong standards often make life quieter before they make it better. The moment you stop accepting disrespect, stop chasing people who offer the bare minimum, and refuse to compromise your values for temporary comfort, your circle may become smaller. Many people become frightened at this stage because the silence feels like failure. They begin wondering whether their expectations are too high, whether they should lower their boundaries, or whether being accepted is more important than being respected. The temptation to settle becomes strongest when loneliness appears. It whispers that any relationship is better than no relationship, that any opportunity is better than waiting, and that any attention is better than being overlooked. Little by little, people begin negotiating with principles they once promised themselves they would protect. They trade lasting self-respect for temporary companionship, only to discover that being surrounded by the wrong people often feels lonelier than standing alone. Dark confidence understands that solitude and loneliness are not the same thing. Solitude can become the space where your character grows stronger, your thinking becomes clearer, and your standards become unshakable. It teaches you that your peace does not depend on constant company. Once you discover that truth, you stop fearing empty spaces because you know they are often making room for healthier relationships. People naturally respect those who refuse to abandon their values simply to avoid standing alone. They recognize someone who is guided by principles instead of popularity. That quiet consistency creates trust because your decisions are no longer controlled by the fear of rejection. Real confidence accepts that high standards may temporarily reduce the number of people around you, but they dramatically improve the quality of those who remain. It is far better to stand alone with your dignity than to stand among many while slowly betraying yourself. Stop giving emotional discounts to people who keep hurting you. People rarely continue disrespectful behavior without first discovering that it carries very little cost. Many individuals repeatedly forgive actions they would never accept from a stranger simply because the person involved is familiar, loved, or has been part of their life for a long time. They excuse broken promises, overlook repeated disrespect, and keep lowering the emotional price of harmful behavior until almost anything becomes acceptable. What once caused deep pain eventually becomes something they silently endure. This happens because the heart often values history more than reality. You remember the good moments, the shared experiences, and the hope that things might return to how they once were. Instead of judging someone by their consistent actions, you begin offering emotional discounts because of who they used to be or who you wish they would become. Every excuse delays the truth, but it does not change it. Dark confidence refuses to separate love from accountability. It understands that care without consequences teaches people that your boundaries are optional. Forgiveness can be healthy, but forgiveness without change often becomes permission. The more you reward repeated harm with unlimited access, patience, and understanding, the more you communicate that your peace will always come second to their comfort. This shift begins the moment you stop confusing compassion with self-abandonment. You can care about someone while refusing to tolerate behavior that repeatedly damages your well-being. You can wish them well without continuing to make yourself available for the same pattern. People naturally respect those who recognize when kindness has become self-neglect. They see someone who values their emotional health enough to stop making endless exceptions for those who continually ignore it. Your confidence grows stronger because your standards finally apply to everyone equally, including the people you care about most. That quiet consistency protects your heart without hardening it. Be hard to manipulate, but easy to respect. The strongest people are not those who make life difficult for everyone around them. They are the ones who make manipulation difficult while making respect feel natural. Many people confuse strength with being cold, suspicious, or emotionally unavailable. They believe protecting themselves requires building walls around every relationship. In reality, becoming impossible to manipulate does not require becoming impossible to approach. It simply requires knowing where kindness ends and control begins. Manipulative people look for predictable weaknesses. They search for excessive guilt, fear of rejection, the need to be liked, or the habit of putting everyone else's comfort before your own. Once they discover those patterns, they begin using pressure, praise, silence, or emotional obligation to influence your decisions. They do not force control overnight. They earn it one small compromise at a time until your choices no longer feel completely your own. Dark confidence quietly interrupts that process. It remains respectful, honest, and considerate, but it also asks questions, notices patterns, and refuses to be rushed into emotional decisions. You do not become defensive with everyone. You simply stop assuming that every smile carries good intentions. Trust is given gradually, and your boundaries remain steady regardless of who is standing in front of you. This balance creates a powerful reputation. People quickly realize that kindness will always be returned with kindness, but manipulation will quietly fail. You cannot be controlled through guilt, false urgency, empty compliments, or emotional games because your self-respect remains stronger than your desire to please. Respect naturally follows this kind of presence. Others feel comfortable around you because you treat them well, yet they also understand that your values are not negotiable. That combination of warmth and strength creates lasting influence, proving that true confidence never requires cruelty, only clear boundaries and unwavering self-control. Never let someone's mood become your responsibility. Many people carry emotional burdens that were never theirs to begin with. The moment someone becomes upset, distant, irritated, or disappointed, they immediately begin searching for something they must have done wrong. They apologize before understanding the situation, change their behavior to restore someone else's happiness, and quietly accept responsibility for emotions they did not create. Over time, they stop living freely because they are constantly managing the emotional weather of everyone around them. This habit often develops in relationships where approval feels uncertain. You begin believing that keeping someone happy is proof of love, loyalty, or worth. As a result, you become hyper-aware of every shift in tone, every delayed reply, every silent moment, and every change in expression. Instead of asking whether the other person's emotions belong to them, you automatically assume they belong to you. Dark confidence breaks this pattern by recognizing an important truth. Every adult is responsible for managing their own emotions. You can be compassionate, supportive, and understanding without making another person's mood your personal assignment. If someone is having a difficult day, you can offer kindness. If they are upset for reasons unrelated to you, you do not need to abandon your own peace trying to fix what you did not cause. This emotional independence changes every relationship. Manipulative people quickly realize that guilt, silent treatment, and emotional pressure no longer control your behavior. At the same time, healthy people feel safer because your support comes from genuine care rather than anxious obligation. People naturally respect someone who remains calm without becoming emotionally detached. They see a person who can offer empathy without surrendering their stability. That balance protects your confidence because your emotional state is no longer determined by someone else's temporary feelings. You stop carrying emotional responsibilities that were never yours and begin protecting your peace without losing your compassion. Do not perform confidence. Practice discipline. Confidence that exists only for other people eventually collapses when no one is watching. Many people spend more energy looking confident than becoming capable. They carefully manage their image, speak with exaggerated certainty, and try to appear successful, fearless, or unshakable. While this performance may impress others for a short time, appearances cannot replace substance. The moment life becomes difficult, borrowed confidence quickly fades because it was built on perception instead of preparation. Discipline creates a completely different kind of strength. It is developed in private moments when there is no audience to applaud your effort. It grows through keeping promises to yourself, showing up when motivation disappears, doing difficult work without recognition, and remaining consistent long after excitement has faded. These quiet habits slowly build an identity that no longer depends on pretending because real ability has taken its place. Dark confidence understands that discipline produces confidence naturally. The more evidence you collect through your own actions, the less need you feel to convince anyone of your value. You stop talking about what you might become because your daily habits are already shaping who you are. Every small act of consistency becomes another reason to trust yourself when challenges appear. This mindset also protects you from comparison. You no longer chase admiration through appearances because your attention is fixed on becoming stronger rather than looking stronger. The focus shifts from performance to progress, and that change creates lasting confidence that cannot be easily shaken. People naturally respect those whose actions consistently match their words. They recognize someone who remains reliable, focused, and steady regardless of who is watching. That quiet discipline becomes more convincing than any display of confidence because it is supported by evidence instead of image. In the end, true confidence is not something you perform. It is something your disciplined life quietly reveals every single day. Stay calm when you have the power to react. Real self-control is not revealed when you are powerless. It is revealed when you have every opportunity to retaliate and deliberately choose not to. Anyone can remain quiet when they have no influence, no evidence, or no ability to respond. The true test comes when you could embarrass someone, expose their mistakes, return the insult, or use your position to hurt them, yet you decide that protecting your character matters more than satisfying your emotions. Many people mistake retaliation for strength because it provides immediate emotional satisfaction. They believe proving a point, winning the argument, or making someone feel the same pain they experienced will finally bring peace. Instead, they often discover that revenge rarely produces respect. It only creates another cycle of emotional reaction where both people become controlled by the same anger they claim to oppose. Dark confidence understands that restraint is most powerful when it is voluntary. You are calm not because you are weak, but because you are in control. You recognize that every reaction carries consequences, and you refuse to let temporary emotion make permanent decisions. Your silence becomes intentional, your patience becomes a choice, and your composure becomes evidence that your emotions answer to your values rather than the other way around. This kind of discipline unsettles people because they expect power to be used impulsively. When they realize you could have reacted but chose wisdom instead, they begin seeing strength that does not depend on intimidation or revenge. People naturally respect those who remain composed even when they possess the ability to strike back. They recognize someone whose confidence is rooted in self-mastery rather than emotional impulse. That quiet restraint protects your dignity, strengthens your reputation, and proves that the greatest form of power is not the ability to react, but the ability to choose when not to. Do not let people pull you into explaining obvious disrespect. Disrespect often becomes more dangerous when it is followed by endless debate. Some people cross clear boundaries, make hurtful remarks, ignore basic courtesy, or repeatedly dismiss your feelings, then immediately ask you to explain why you are upset. Before long, the conversation is no longer about what they did. It becomes an exhausting discussion where you are expected to justify why obvious disrespect should be considered disrespect at all. Many people fall into this trap because they desperately want to be understood. They repeat themselves in different ways, provide examples, revisit old conversations, and carefully explain every emotion, hoping that if they communicate well enough, the other person will finally admit the truth. But when someone is committed to avoiding accountability, every explanation simply becomes another opportunity to argue, minimize, or redirect the conversation. Dark confidence recognizes that not every misunderstanding deserves a detailed defense. If someone consistently refuses to acknowledge behavior that would be considered disrespectful by any reasonable standard, the issue is often not a lack of explanation. It is a lack of willingness. No amount of clearer words can create honesty in someone determined to avoid it. This awareness changes how you protect your peace. Instead of repeatedly defending your reaction, you calmly recognize the pattern and respond through your boundaries rather than endless arguments. You allow your actions to communicate what your explanations no longer need to. People naturally respect those who know the difference between honest dialogue and emotional manipulation. They see someone who is willing to communicate openly but unwilling to waste endless energy defending what is already clear. Your confidence becomes stronger because it is no longer trapped in conversations designed to make you question your own reality. Sometimes the most powerful response to obvious disrespect is not another explanation. It is quietly refusing to accept it any longer. Never make your loyalty available without discernment. Loyalty is one of the rarest qualities a person can offer, yet many people give it away long before it has been earned. They become deeply committed after a few kind words, defend people they barely know, and continue standing beside those who repeatedly prove they cannot be trusted. They mistake emotional attachment for loyalty, believing that staying no matter what is a sign of strength. In reality, loyalty without discernment often becomes a pathway to disappointment. Trust should never be built on promises alone. Anyone can appear dependable when life is easy, when nothing is being asked of them, or when there is something to gain. Character is revealed through consistency, accountability, and the way someone treats you when they no longer need your approval. This is why wise people observe patterns before offering complete loyalty. They understand that time exposes what first impressions often hide. Dark confidence knows that loyalty is valuable precisely because it is selective. It does not disappear at the first disagreement, but neither does it ignore repeated betrayal, disrespect, or dishonesty. It understands that standing beside someone who continually violates your trust is not loyalty. It is self-neglect disguised as virtue. True loyalty should strengthen your life, not repeatedly wound it. This mindset changes the quality of your relationships. You stop giving unwavering commitment to people who have only offered temporary words. Instead, you allow trust to grow through shared experiences, consistent actions, and mutual respect. Those who deserve your loyalty will never need to manipulate or pressure you into giving it. People naturally respect someone whose loyalty must be earned rather than assumed. They recognize that your commitment carries weight because it is based on wisdom instead of impulse. That quiet discernment protects your heart, strengthens your confidence, and ensures that the people closest to you have proven themselves worthy of the trust you choose to give. Let your boundaries speak before your anger does. Anger is often the final warning after many earlier signals have been ignored. Most people do not explode because of one single event. They explode because they stayed silent through countless smaller moments that quietly violated their comfort, their values, and their peace. They tolerated behavior they disliked, ignored their own instincts, and kept hoping the situation would improve on its own. By the time anger finally appeared, it was carrying the weight of every boundary that had never been enforced. Healthy boundaries prevent many conflicts from ever reaching that point. They communicate expectations early, calmly, and consistently before resentment has the chance to grow. Instead of waiting until frustration becomes impossible to hide, you address problems while your mind is still clear. A simple, respectful boundary often accomplishes more than an emotional confrontation that arrives months too late. Dark confidence understands that anger should never become your primary method of protection. It uses clear limits instead. You calmly say no when something is unacceptable. You create distance when respect disappears. You refuse repeated behavior without feeling the need to shout, threaten, or prove a point. Your actions communicate what your emotions no longer need to scream. This approach changes the way people interact with you. They learn that your boundaries are consistent and do not depend on your mood. There is no confusion about where the line exists because you protect it long before anger becomes necessary. Those who respect you adjust their behavior. Those who refuse reveal exactly where they stand. People naturally respect someone who protects their peace without constant emotional outbursts. They see a person whose strength comes from self-control rather than intimidation. That quiet consistency makes your confidence feel stable because your boundaries are established through wisdom, not through accumulated frustration. In the end, calm limits often accomplish what anger never could. Do not try to win. People who enjoy making you audition. Not everyone is waiting to discover your value. Some people enjoy making others constantly prove themselves. They keep raising the standard, moving the goalposts, offering just enough approval to keep you trying, then withdrawing it again. You work harder to earn their respect, attention, or affection, believing that one more achievement, one more explanation, or one more sacrifice will finally convince them. Without realizing it, you become trapped in an endless audition for a role that was never truly available. This pattern is emotionally exhausting because the reward is always just out of reach. Every time you think you have finally done enough, another expectation appears. The relationship becomes built on performance instead of mutual appreciation. Instead of asking whether they deserve your effort, you become consumed with wondering whether you deserve their approval. That shift quietly places your self-worth in someone else's hands. Dark confidence recognizes this pattern early. It understands that healthy relationships do not require endless proof of your value. Respect grows naturally through honesty, consistency, and mutual effort. If someone repeatedly makes you compete for basic decency, keeps you emotionally uncertain, or treats your worth as something that must constantly be earned, they are revealing more about their character than yours. The strongest response is not trying harder. It is refusing to participate. You stop chasing validation from people who enjoy withholding it. You allow your absence to replace your arguments and your self-respect to replace your desperation. People naturally respect those who know when to walk away from impossible standards. They recognize someone who refuses to spend their life performing for an audience that never intended to applaud. Your confidence becomes stronger because it is no longer built on passing someone else's test. It is built on knowing your value before anyone else decides whether to recognize it. Carry yourself like your attention must be earned. Attention is one of the most valuable things you can give another person because, unlike money or possessions, it can never be recovered once it has been spent. Yet many people hand it out freely to anyone who demands it. They immediately respond to every interruption, invest deeply in every conversation, and give equal energy to people who respect them and people who repeatedly waste their time. Without realizing it, they teach others that their focus is available without effort or consideration. Confident people understand that attention should follow character, not noise. They do not become fascinated simply because someone is loud, attractive, popular, or demanding. Instead, they observe how people behave over time. They notice honesty, consistency, respect, humility, and emotional maturity before deciding who deserves a meaningful place in their lives. This makes their attention feel valuable because it is offered intentionally rather than automatically. Dark confidence quietly protects this principle. It listens carefully without becoming immediately invested. It remains friendly without becoming emotionally attached too quickly. It allows trust, admiration, and deeper connection to grow through repeated actions instead of first impressions. People quickly realize they cannot gain your full attention through charm, pressure, flattery, or constant availability alone. They must demonstrate qualities worthy of it. This approach changes the way others perceive you. Your interest feels genuine because it is never forced. Your time feels important because you do not spend it carelessly. Those who value meaningful relationships appreciate your discernment, while those seeking easy access often lose interest when they realize they cannot bypass your standards. People naturally respect someone who treats their attention as something precious rather than unlimited. Your presence becomes more meaningful because it cannot be demanded or assumed. When others understand that your focus is earned through respect, consistency, and character, your confidence begins speaking long before you ever say a word. Never let someone shame you for self-respect. People who benefit from your lack of boundaries are often the first to criticize you when you finally develop them. The moment you begin saying no, protecting your time, expecting honesty, or refusing disrespect, some people will accuse you of becoming selfish, difficult, or cold. They may question your character, suggest you have changed, or make you feel guilty simply because you no longer accept what once made their lives easier. Their words are designed to make you doubt your own growth. Many people surrender at this point because guilt feels uncomfortable. They begin apologizing for healthy decisions, lowering standards they worked hard to build, and reopening doors that should have remained closed. Instead of asking whether their boundaries are reasonable, they become consumed with making sure nobody feels disappointed. In doing so, they quietly abandon themselves once again. Dark confidence understands that self-respect is not an act of aggression. Choosing peace over chaos, honesty over people-pleasing, and healthy distance over repeated hurt does not make you unkind. It simply means you have stopped believing that love requires self-neglect. You no longer confuse endless sacrifice with goodness, nor constant availability with compassion. This shift often reveals the true nature of your relationships. People who genuinely care about you may need time to adjust, but they ultimately respect your boundaries because they value you as a person, not merely for what you provide. Those who become angry, manipulative, or insulting often reveal that they were attached to your compliance more than your well-being. People naturally respect someone who protects their dignity without becoming defensive. They recognize a person who refuses to carry unnecessary guilt for making healthy choices. Your confidence grows stronger because your self-respect is no longer available for negotiation, even when someone tries to disguise manipulation as disappointment or love. Do not confuse access with intimacy. Many people believe that spending time with someone automatically means they truly know them. They mistake frequent conversations for trust, constant messages for connection, and physical closeness for emotional safety. In reality, access and intimacy are very different things. A person may have access to your time, your company, and even your daily life without ever earning the deepest parts of your trust. The danger begins when you assume familiarity is the same as genuine closeness. Real intimacy is built slowly through consistency, honesty, respect, and emotional responsibility. It is not created by the number of hours you spend together or how much information someone knows about you. A person can hear your stories without protecting your heart. They can spend years around you while never truly understanding your values, your struggles, or your character. Time alone cannot create trust. Only repeated actions can. Dark confidence understands that emotional closeness should never be rushed. It allows people into different areas of life gradually, watching how they handle smaller responsibilities before offering greater ones. Someone who cannot respect simple boundaries cannot be trusted with deeper vulnerability. Someone who gossips about others will likely gossip about you. Someone who repeatedly ignores your feelings has not earned greater access simply because they have been present for a long time. This awareness changes the quality of your relationships. You stop confusing attention with loyalty and familiarity with safety. Instead of opening every door at once, you allow trust to develop naturally through shared experiences and proven character. People naturally respect someone who understands that intimacy is earned rather than assumed. They recognize that your trust carries real value because it is protected with wisdom instead of impulse. That quiet discernment strengthens your confidence, protects your peace, and ensures that the people closest to you have demonstrated they deserve to remain there.